I accidentally started not on my start stream. Start stream? Start screen. Start screen. That's okay. We'll just hang out here. I'll do the what the heck is the song even? Da na 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 na. Na 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 da na 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 da 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 da. Hi Ash! You like my intro? Oh dang my mouse. Da na 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 da na na da na 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 da na 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 da na 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 da na 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 You're eating Walmart? Apparently Walmart sells Dunkaroos. Did you know that? I was trying to get Dunkaroos the other day. I wanted to order from this, gosh, what's it? It's like this retro candy store. So they sell old candies, but they also sell candies that we can't get in Canada regularly. Like a lot of American candy bars. Like what's that one that's like, it's like $100. Not that it's $100, but it's like $100,000 maybe. I don't know. There's an American candy bar that's like 100 something. I just can't remember. Oh my gosh! I forgot to open up Mix It Up. Sorry guys. I forgot to open up the bot. I also forgot to turn on my nature sounds. There we go. $100,000! Is that what it is? Or are you just saying you love $100,000? Because I do love $100,000 too. If it's money. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Do you guys know what replay buffer means? I don't know what replay buffer means. Like on OBS, sometimes it starts doing like start replay buffer on its own. And I don't know what it does, but it takes up energy. I don't want it to do. I don't want it to do that. Shake my head. So I always press stop. But maybe it's like important. I'm not quite sure. Let's see what this says. It says, I'm live. Oh, I can leave my server. I don't think... What happens if someone who owns the server leaves the server? Does the owning pass down to one of the mods at random? Or does it just delete? Questions we don't have answers to. Hi, Pappy, I see you. Mix It Up open, yes. Stream avatars open, yes. It'll create a paradox, oh god. I have the book, I have the sounds, I believe I have everything. It's always weird doing like the Warrior Cat Wednesday streams because I don't have very much open. And by not very much, I mean I'm not opening one extra program. Gonna be lurking until I get home. Okay, Juice! Have a safe trip home. Today, I don't have a drink, do I? I have like leftover coffee. I have a little bit of juice left. Oh, I have like a sore on the very tip of my tongue, so when I have juice it hurts. In the server implodes on itself. Oh. Everybody's the owner of the server, and everybody's mods at the same time. That's what happens. Alright guys, today we are actually don't know what chapter we ended on. I can't seem to remember exactly where we stopped last time. I'm thinking it was chapter 12 because I have like this inkling of a feeling, because chapter 12 is on 78, and then I feel like I said something like, oh, we're 100 pages something till the end. Less than 100 pages till the end. But I don't know. But at the same time, the beginning of chapter 12 sounds familiar. But it's hard to tell if it's familiar as in I read it once 10 years ago, or familiar as in I read it last week. It's hard to tell. That's my memory. Did this happen 10 years ago, or did this happen last week? I'm not entirely sure. What I am sure is Gray Stripe is having a terrible time in our, let's see, our summary thus far. Previously on Warrior Cant's Fire and Ice. So, Gray Stripe and Fireheart went to go find Wind Clan because Wind Clan had been chased out by the previous Shadow Clan leader. They found them, they brought them back home, and then Fireheart had this brilliant idea that, oh, we'll just take a shortcut through River Clan because we're on an important mission and they won't care. And then the two Wind Clan warriors that was gonna escort them are like, you sure, buddy? And then he was like, yeah, this is a genius idea. And so they all agreed, and they started like walking on the side of a cliff in River Clan territory to get home. And then a patrol saw them, and what do you know? When they saw them, they didn't think, oh my god, it's Fireheart and Gray Stripe and Wind Clan warriors that are being escorted home on their special mission. They thought, that's some intruders. So they started attacking, and then luckily there was a Thunder Clan patrol nearby that heard the yowling, and they ran into River Clan territory, and they joined in on the fight. They scrabbled, they fought. Sandpaw almost fell off the side of the cliff, but Fireheart rescued her, and now she's like, she got so shook by this fact that now she's not as mean to him anymore. That's what I have noticed. But Gray Stripe accidentally was fighting, and they got too close to the edge, and then the warrior that he was fighting fell off the side of the cliff and died. And Gray Stripe was pretty traumatized. Everybody stopped fighting after that, and they were like, all right, let's stop. And so they all left, and then they got back home, and then everybody was like, oh my god, you guys are back, did it go well? And then they were like, yeah, they're back, but also Gray Stripe killed someone by mistake. And they're like, oh. Now the River Clan alliance with Shadow Clan is probably going to be heightened, and River Clan is now going to hate Thunder Clan and Wind Clan by extension. But because Blue Star has favorism involved, she, instead of punishes Fireheart and Gray Stripe by skipping through 4 trees, they went through River Clan territory instead. She gave them apprentices. So now Gray Stripe and Fireheart both have new apprentices, Cinderpaw and Breakinpaw. And so they're doing that. They're training. And then Cinderpaw is notoriously bad. Oh, wait! I missed something. During his first thing with Cinderpaw, like he was showing Cinderpaw the forest, and then he smelt he saw a cat, and the cat was pregnant, and she was like, I don't know, he was like, oh my god, she smells so familiar for some reason. And then he had dreams about her, and then he woke up and he realized, OMG, that's Princess, my sister. And so now Fireheart skips training Cinderpaw sometimes just to go visit his sister, who lives in a two-leg place. So he goes into the garden and he has a little chatty with her. They, catch up. They're pretty friendly. Then he sneaks back home. And yeah. So that's also happening. And then when Graystripe and Fireheart were on like a little, I don't know what they were doing. They were just doing a joint training thing, I think. They got close to the RiverClan border, and then Cinderpaw saw something and started running out into RiverClan territory. And so they all started chasing them. Hi, Van! And I forgot what... Oh, Graystripe saw like a vole in RiverClan territory, and he started chasing it. He chased it off onto the frozen river. And the ice broke, and he fell inside, and he got swept away. And we thought that Graystripe was about to die, because this book is called The Graystripe's Very Bad, Awful, Terrible Day, or few months. And then RiverClan Cat instead sees him, jumps in, is super good at swimming because she's cool, saves Graystripe's life, and then Graystripe kind of flirts with her a little. He's like, well, if I drowned in my territory, who will save me? And then she's like, wow. Well, my father is... Wait, I feel like she said something about her dad. I can't remember. Anyways, she said something about her dad. Probably he's some person, either the deputy or the leader. I don't know. I can't remember. And they're like, OMG, yeah, you should like go. And so she ran away. And that's where we are. They're coming back to camp. And Tiger Claw walks in and is like, yo, what the... Y'all are... Why is Graystripe so wet and gross looking? And that's where we're at. I think either that's where we're at or we're at the next chapter. I can't really tell. I'm just gonna start reading it, and if you guys feel like it's really familiar, then let me know. All right. Chapter 12. Fireheart lifted his head, about to speak, but Cinderpaw beat him to it. It's my fault, Tiger Claw. She stared boldly up at the great tabby. We were hunting on a frozen stream by the training hollow, on the bend by the deep pool. Even that bit was frozen. I slipped in and Graystripe came to help me, but the ice wasn't thick enough for him and it cracked and he fell into the water. Tiger Claw looked into the clear, bright eyes as she added, It really is deep there. Fireheart had to pull him out. Fireheart cringed, remembering how he stood motionless with terror at the sight of Graystripe disappearing into the river. Tiger Claw nodded and looked at Graystripe. You better go get yourself to Yellowfang before you freeze to death. The ThunderClan deputy stood up and stalked away, and Fireheart breathed a sigh of relief. Graystripe didn't hesitate. The long run home hadn't stopped his teeth from chattering. He bounded away to Yellowfang's den. Brackenpaw glanced at Cinderpaw and padded off to his nest, his tail drooping with exhaustion. Fireheart looked at Cinderpaw. Aren't you even a bit frightened of Tiger Claw? He asked curiously. Why should I be? Replied Cinderpaw. He's a great warrior. I admire him. Of course. Why shouldn't she? Fireheart thought. You lie very well, he growled sternly, trying his best to act like a mentor. Well, I try not to, mewed Cinderpaw. I just thought the truth wouldn't have been very helpful there. Fireheart had to admit she had a point. He shook his head slowly. Go and get warm. Yes, Fireheart! Cinderpaw dipped her head and charged after Breaking-Paw. Fireheart padded over to the warrior's den. He was worried how easy the story about Graystripe's soaking had tumbled from Cinderpaw's mouth, but he also believed she was a well-meaning and honest cat. He thought of Ravenpaw, another good cat. Had the story he told about Tigerclaw killing Redtail simply been that? A story that tumbled out from his mouth in the heat of the moment? Fireheart shook his head, shook the thought away. Ravenpaw had been terrified when he spoke to Fireheart. He obviously believed his own story. Why else would he have been frightened enough to leave the clan? Fireheart chose a few pieces of fresh kill and carried them over to the nettle clump. He settled himself beside it and began to gnaw thoughtfully on a mouse. The admiration in Cinderpaw's voice when she had spoken about Tigerclaw worried him. It seemed as though he alone suspected there was more to the ThunderClan deputy than met the eye. Bluestar's attitude towards Thunderclaw certainly hadn't changed. She had been treating him with the same trust and respect that she had always shown him. With a flash of frustration, Fireheart ripped another mouthful from his meal. A loud sneeze made him look up. Graystripe was heading back towards him. How are you? Fireheart asked as Graystripe arrived, smelling of one of Yellowfing's herb concoctions. Graystripe sat down heavily and coughed. I saved you some food, Fireheart meowed, pushing a plump of thrush and a vole towards his friend. Yellowfang says I have to stay in camp. She says I'll have a chill, Graystripe meowed thickly. I'm not surprised. What did she dose you with? Feverfew and lavender. Graystripe lay down and began to nibble at the thrush. This'll be enough for me, he mumbled. I'm not very hungry. Fireheart looked at his friend in amazement. That wasn't something he ever thought he'd heard Graystripe say. You sure? He asked. There's plenty here. Graystripe stared down at the thrush and didn't reply. Are you sure? Fireheart repeated. What? Graystripe turned his faraway gaze on Fireheart. Yeah, he meowed. He must have a fever, Fireheart decided, shaking his head. Oh well, at least he was still here, thanks to that RiverClan cat. A few days later, Fireheart woke to find the first fog of Leaf Bear filling the den. When he crept outside, he could barely see the other side of the clearing. He heard paw steps hurrying towards him, and Mousefur had appeared out of the gloom. Tigerclaw wants to see you, she meowed. Right, thanks, answered Fireheart. Alarm shot through him. He'd slipped away to visit Princess yesterday. Had Tigerclaw noticed? What was that? Graystripe's voice wheezed from behind him. He sat down beside Fireheart, sneezed, and yawned. Tigerclaw wants to see me. Fireheart looked at his friend. You should be asleep. He was beginning to worry about Graystripe. He ought to have recovered by now. Did you rest up yesterday? He asked. As much as I could between coughing and sneezing, complained Graystripe. Then why weren't you in your nest when I got back from... Fireheart hesitated, remembering he'd spent the afternoon talking with Princess. Training. Do you think I get any peace and quiet in here? Graystripe flicked his head back in the den. Warriors trooping in and out all day. I found somewhere quieter, that's all. Fireheart was about to ask where, but Graystripe spoke first. I wonder what Tigerclaw wants. Fireheart's paws prickled. I better go and find out. He could just see the shapes of Tigerclaw and Whitestorm through the mist, sitting below the high rock. As Fireheart padded over to them, they stopped talking, and Tigerclaw turned to him. It's time Cinderpaw and Breckenpaw were assessed, he growled. Already? Fireheart meowed in surprise. The apprentices had not been training long. Bluestar wants to see how their training is progressing, especially with Graystripe being too ill to train Breckenpaw. Breckenpaw is falling behind, she needs to know so she can appoint another mentor for him. Fireheart's tail twitched with annoyance. Surely Graystripe would recover soon. It would be unfair to entrust his first apprentice to someone else. I've been taking Breckenpaw with me and Cinderpaw every day, he meowed quickly. Tigerclaw glanced at Whitestorm and nodded. Yes, but this is your first time as a mentor. It's a lot for you to take on, and ThunderClan needs well-trained warriors. I know, and I'm just a kitty pat, not clan-born warrior, Fireheart thought bitterly. He looked down at his paws, stinging with resentment. No one had asked him to take on Breckenpaw. He had been putting on a lot of effort with both apprentices. Tigerclaw went on. Send Breckenpaw and Cinderpaw on a hunting mission through Tall Pines, as far as Two Leg Place. Keep an eye on them, watch them hunt, and report to me. I'll be interested to see how much fresh kill they add to the pile. Whitestorm added, If Cinderpaw's skill match her enthusiasm, there should be plenty to eat tonight. I hear she is keen apprentice. Yes, she is, Fireheart agreed, though he was barely listening. Tigerclaw's word had set his heart racing. Why was Tigerclaw sending him to the two-leg place again? His own hunting assessment had been held over exactly the same route, and Tigerclaw had seen him sharing words with an old kitty pet friend. He'd reported it to Blue Star, and she had questioned Fireheart's loyalty to the clan. Fireheart felt the fur along his spine began to prickle. Was this Tigerclaw's way of warning him that he had been spotted talking to Princess? Fireheart twisted his head and gave his back a quick lick, brushing the bristling hairs flat with his tongue. He sat up straight again and calmly suggested, the Shining Rocks would be equally good place to test their skills. The sun there would have burned away some of the mist, too. No, growled Tigerclaw. The Dawn Patrol reported scenting River Clan at Shining Rocks. They may have started hunting there again. Anger flared in his eyes and his lip curled to reveal sharp teeth. They will need to be warned off before we do any training there. For now, Tall Pines will be much safer than for the assessment. Whitestorm nodded in agreement while Fireheart's ears twitched uncomfortably at this news. River Clan at Sunning Rocks! It was lucky they hadn't been spotted by enemy patrols when Greystripe fell into the river. As for the fog, Tigerclaw continued smoothly, hunting in difficult conditions will make the test more interesting. Yes, Tigerclaw, meowed Fireheart, ducking his head respectfully to the two warriors. I'll tell Cinderpaw and Breakin'Paw we'll get started right away. When Fireheart explained the assessment to the apprentices, Cinderpaw flicked up her tail and ran in an excited circle. An assessment! Do you think we're ready? Of course, Fireheart meowed, hiding his doubt. You've been working hard and learning quickly. But won't the fog make it difficult to hunt? Asked Breakin'Paw. Fireheart replied, There are advantages to the stillness of the air. Breakin'Paw looked thoughtful. Then his eyes began to shine and he mewed. It'll be harder to sniff out prey, but it'll also make it harder for prey to smell us. Exactly, Fireheart agreed. Shall we go now? Cinderpaw asked. As soon as you like, answered Fireheart. But take your time. It's not a race. His words were wasted on Cinderpaw, who was already charging towards the camp entrance. You've got till sunset, he called after her. Breakin'Paw glanced at Fireheart and turned to follow his sister with a small sigh. Fireheart tracked down the two apprentices through tall pines. The springy layer of pine needles under Paw felt strangely soft after the frozen ground on the rest of the forest. He followed Cinderpaw's trail until he could see her stalking eagerly through the forest. Then he picked up Breakin'Paw's scent and followed that. The trails crossed here and there. Fireheart could smell where the apprentices had run fast, where they had sat down, even where they had lingered together at one point. Before long, Fireheart found a spot where Cinderpaw had made a kill. She had taken it with her. As he followed her trail, he could smell the scent of her catch mingling with her own. Then he discovered where Breakin'Paw had caught a thrush. The feathers were scattered everywhere. The apprentices were hunting well. Fireheart knew this for sure when he detected a scent thick with fresh kill. He dug down among the needles at the roots of a pine. There was a stash of prey hidden underneath it, left by Cinderpaw to pick up later. Fireheart felt a small glow of pride at her work. She had caught plenty, and now she was headed for the oak woods behind the two-leg place. Fireheart followed. Just beyond the edge of the pine forest, he picked up Breakin'Paw's scent. It was strong, which meant the apprentice was nearby. Fireheart crept forward and peered through a young oak. The apprentice was crouching beneath a tangle of brambles, well disguised among its shadows. Fireheart could just see his tail moving as it twitched from side to side. Breakin'Paw had his eyes fixed on a wood mouse that was scrambling around the roots of a tree. Breakin'Paw was taking his time. Good, thought Fireheart. He watched Breakin'Paw draw himself forward, one step at a time. The leaves beneath his paws hardly made a sound. He was as quiet as the mouse itself, which continued to hunt for food, suspecting nothing. Fireheart watched breathlessly, remembering his first hunting mission. Breakin'Paw closed in. The soft rustle of his paws on the leaves melted into the background of sounds of the forest. Fireheart found himself willing the apprentice on. Breakin'Paw was only a rabbit length away from the mouse now. His body pressed flat against the forest floor. The mouse scrambled up a root and looked around. It froze. Something was wrong. Now, thought Fireheart. Breckenpaw sprung and landed on the mouse, grasping it in his front paws. The mouse didn't have time to struggle. It was over in a single bite. Breckenpaw raised his head. Fireheart saw the satisfied expression on the young cat's face as he breathed in the scent of his fresh kill. Then Breckenpaw darted away between the trees. Fireheart realized he was looking forward to reporting back to Tigerclaw about his apprentices. "Hi!" The small voice behind him made Fireheart jump into the air. He spun around. "How are we doing?" asked Cinderpaw, looking up at him with her head to one side. "You're not meant to ask that." Fireheart spat and licked his ruffled fur. "You're supposed to not speak to me at all. I'm assessing you, remember?" "Oh!" mewed Cinderpaw. "Sorry." Fireheart sighed. He would have never dared to approach Tigerclaw during his own assessment. He didn't want to scare Cinderpaw into obedience, as Tigerclaw had done with Ravenpaw, but he wouldn't mind a little respect now and then. Sometimes he didn't feel like Cinderpaw's mentor at all. Cinderpaw looked at the ground for a moment, then glanced up at him, a puzzled expression on her face. "Were you really born over there? In Two-Leg Place?" The question caught Fireheart off guard. He glanced nervously in the direction of the two-leg fence, praying that the strange sense of Cinderpaw and Breckenpaw would keep Princess inside her own garden today. "Why'd you ask?" he mewed, stalling. "Tigerclaw mentioned it, that's all," answered Cinderpaw. She seemed genuinely curious, but Fireheart felt a dark quiver of menace at the mention of Tigerclaw's name. What else had Tigerclaw been telling Cinderpaw about him? "I was born a kitty pet," Fireheart mewed firmly, "but I'm a warrior now. My life is with the clan. My old life wasn't bad, but it's over, and I'm glad." "Oh, okay," mewed Cinderpaw, sounding unconcerned. "I'll see you later." She spun around and charged off into the trees. Fireheart stood alone in the woods, his heart thudding as he stared at the two-leg fence. A moon ago, his words to Cinderpaw about being glad his old life was over would have been utterly true. Now he was not so sure. His fur tingled with the knowledge that some of his happiest moments recently had been spent sharing memories with his gentle kitty pet sister. His loyalty is not with the clan. Chapter 13. As the sun sank into the forest, Fireheart waited beside the pine tree where Cinderpaw had buried her first lot of fresh kill. He heard paw steps and turned to see Cinderpaw and Breckenpaw padding towards him, prey dangling from their mouths. Breckenpaw could barely hold his catch, it was so big. Fireheart felt a surge of relief. Even Tigerclaw couldn't criticize the apprentice's efforts. "I'll help carry this lot back," Fireheart offered, flicking away the covering of the pine needles from Cinderpaw's stash. He dug it up, grasped the fresh kill between his teeth, and set off back towards camp. When they arrived at the camp clearing, some of the clan cats were already taking their share from the fresh kill pile. Tigerclaw must have been looking out for their return, because he padded over to them as they dropped their catch near the nest. "They caught all these themselves?" he asked, nudging the pile with a massive paw. "Oh, yes," Fireheart replied. "Good," meowed Tigerclaw. "Come join me and Bluestar. Bring some fresh kill for yourself. We're already eating." Cinderpaw and Breckenpaw looked at Fireheart with admiring stares. It was a privilege to eat with this clan leader and deputy. Fireheart didn't share the excitement. He hoped that he would report to Bluestar alone. The last cats he wanted to share his meal with was Tigerclaw. "By the way, have you seen Graystripe?" asked Tigerclaw. Fireheart felt a pang of concern as Tigerclaw continued. "He's supposed to stay in camp while he has this cold, but I haven't seen him since Sun-High." Fireheart shifted his paws. Had Graystripe gone off looking for peace and quiet again? "No," he admitted. "Perhaps he's with Yellowfang?" "Perhaps," echoed Tigerclaw, and padded away to where Bluestar was gnawing at a fat pigeon. Fireheart followed, trying to push away his growing worry about Graystripe's disappearances. He selected a small chaffinch from the pile of fresh kill as he passed, then wished he'd chosen a vole. How was he going to give his report with a mouthful of feathers? Welcome, Fireheart," meowed Bluestar as Fireheart sat down in front of her. He placed the chaffinch on the ground, but decided to not start eating. "Tigerclaw tells me your apprentice has caught plenty of prey." Bluestar's gaze was friendly. Tigerclaw, sitting beside her, glared at him more critically, making Fireheart's tail twitch. "Yes, they've never hunted in the mist before, but it didn't seem to put either of them off," Fireheart meowed. "I watched Breckenpaw catch a wood mouse. He was stalking was excellent." "What about Cinderpaw?" asked Bluestar. Fireheart noticed a steely glint appear in her eyes. Was she worried about Cinderpaw's abilities? Fireheart replied, "Her hunting skills are developing well. She has lots of enthusiasm, that's for sure, and she doesn't seem to be scared of anything." "Are you worried that might make her reckless?" asked Bluestar. "She's quick and inquisitive, which makes her a good learner. I think it will make up for her—" Fireheart searched anxiously for the right word. Eagerness. Bluestar flicked her tail. "Her eagerness, as you say, worries me," she meowed, flashing a glance at Tigerclaw. "She will need careful guidance in her training." Fireheart's spirits plummeted. Was Bluestar unhappy with his mentoring? Bluestar's eyes softened. "She was always going to be a challenge, but she was clearly turning into a fine hunter. You have done good work with her, Fireheart. With both of them, in fact." Fireheart brightened immediately, and Bluestar went on. "I've noticed how you've taken over Break and Paw's training without being asked, and I want you to carry on mentoring them both for the time being." Tigerclaw turned his gaze away, but Fireheart didn't miss the anger that flashed in his eyes. "Thank you, Bluestar," he meowed. "I see your missing friend has returned," Tigerclaw growled without turning his head. Fireheart spun around to see Graystripe appearing from behind the nursery. "He's probably just getting some peace and quiet," he suggested. "He's still feverish. It can't be easy being stuck in camp all day." "Easy or not, he should be concentrating on getting better," meowed Tigerclaw. "Leaf Bear has no time for sickness in the camp. Mousefur was coughing on patrol this morning. I just hope StarClan protects us from green cough this season. We lost 5 kits to it last year." Yikes. Bluestar nodded her gray head solemnly. "Let's pray that Leaf Bear isn't as long or as hard. It's never an easy time for the clans." She looked wistful for a moment, then told Fireheart, "Take the chaffinch and share it with Graystripe. He'll want to know how his apprentice did in his assessment." "Yes, Bluestar, thanks," meowed Fireheart. He picked up the chaffinch and bounded over to the nettle clump where Graystripe had settled himself with the large wood mouse. Graystripe had eaten half of it by the time Fireheart arrived. Perhaps his cold was on the mend. As Fireheart dropped the chaffinch beside his friend, Graystripe sneezed. "Cold no better?" asked Fireheart sympathetically. "Nope," replied Graystripe with his mouth full. "I guess I'll have to stay in camp a while longer." Fireheart thought his friend sounded a lot more cheerful than he had before, but he didn't want to betray his growing suspicion that Graystripe was up to something. "Bringapaw did really well in his assessment today," he meowed. "Really?" Graystripe took a bite out of his mouth. "That's good." "Yeah, he's a great hunter." Fireheart started to eat his chaffinch. "Graystripe," he meowed after a long silence, "have you been out of the camp for the past few days?" Graystripe stopped chewing. "Why do you ask?" Fireheart's tail twitched uncomfortably. "Well, you weren't here when I got in from last night's patrol, and Tigerclaw said he hadn't seen you since Sunhigh today." "Tigerclaw?" Graystripe sounded worried. "I told him you were probably out looking for peace and quiet, or that you might be with Yellowfang." Fireheart meowed. He took another bite of the chaffinch. "Were you?" he asked through the feathers, suddenly desperate for Graystripe to say yes, to stop the suspicion that Graystripe might be keeping a secret from him. "Thank you for the follow, Makoto." Makotako. Makotako! That's so cute. But Graystripe ignored Fireheart's query. "Well, thanks for covering for me," he asked. He carried on chewing. Fireheart didn't ask any more questions, even though he was burning with curiosity. When Graystripe got to his paws and announced he was going to the den, Fireheart was still no wiser about what was on Graystripe's mind. "Okay," he meowed. "I think I'll stay here a bit longer." Graystripe gave him a brief nod and patted away. Fireheart rolled onto his back for a long stretch, scratching the ground above his head with his claws. He lay there on his back for a while, thinking. From the smell of him, Graystripe had given himself a very good watch recently. Was he trying to hide some scent? Fireheart realized that Graystripe had pretty much admitted that he left camp, but where could he have gone that he couldn't or wouldn't tell Fireheart? Suddenly, his paws prickled. What about his own visits to Princess in Two-Leg territory, of all places? He washed himself thoroughly before returning to camp too, but never mentioned these meetings to Graystripe. Fireheart flipped over and sat up. There was something caught under one of his claws. He lifted his paw and tugged at the piece of dirt with his teeth. It was a catkin, old and shriveled, but definitely a catkin. What was that doing here? Willow trees didn't grow in ThunderClan's part of the forest. In fact, the only willows Fireheart had ever seen grew close to the river, in RiverClan territory. Fireheart held his breath as his heart began to pound. Had this come out of Graystripe's coat? He crept into the warrior's den. Graystripe was already asleep. Fireheart lay awake beside him and wondered if Graystripe had really been foolish enough to return to RiverClan territory. The look in Leopardfur's eyes after Whiteclaw's death had showed him that there was a score to be settled. Fireheart shuddered as he resolved to find out exactly where Graystripe was going and why. When Fireheart awoke, the den felt damp and chilled. One sniff in the air told him the rain was on the way. He pushed his way outside, yawning. He hadn't slept well, worrying a Graystripe. Even now, the thought of his friend alone in RiverClan territory sent a shiver through him. "Chilly, eh?" Running Wing's voice startled Fireheart. Fireheart looked over his shoulder, his tail twitching. The lean, tabby warrior was padding out of his den. Yeah," Fireheart agreed. "Are you okay?" asked Running Wing. "Not caught your friend's cold, have ya? Mousefur streaming with it this morning, and Longtail and Swiftpaw sneezed all through training yesterday." Fireheart shook his head. "I'm fine, just tired after yesterday's assessment." "Ah, Bluestar thought you might be. That's why she asked me to help you with Cinderpaw and Breaking Paw training today. Is that okay with you?" "Yeah, thanks," Fireheart meowed. "Right then," Running Wing decided. "I'll meet you in the hollow after I've eaten. If Swiftpaw's coming down with a cold, we should have a place to ourselves. Are you hungry?" Fireheart shook his head, and Running Wing trotted away to pick up the leftovers from last night's fresh kill. Fireheart went straight to the training hollow and waited for the others to arrive. His mind was not on training. He was still thinking about Graystripe. He felt sure his friend would slip out of camp again today. A rain-laden wind was beginning to sway the leafless branches above the hollow when Cinderpaw and Breaking Paw arrived, followed by Running Wing. Why was that sentence such a tongue twister? "What are we doing today?" asked Cinderpaw, scrambling down the hollow. Fireheart stared at her blankly. He hadn't even thought about that. "Hunting?" Breaking Paw mewed hopefully as he trotted after Cinderpaw. Running Wing padded across the hollow and joined them. "How about practicing some stalking techniques?" he suggested. "Good idea," Fireheart agreed quickly. "Not the old rabbit hears you, mouse feels you lesson again," Cinderpaw moaned. Running Wing silenced her with a look and turned to Fireheart. Fireheart realized that with the jump, Running Wing was waiting for him to start. "I'll start by showing you the best way to stalk a rabbit," he stammered. He dropped to a crouch and began to move forward, fast and light, until he reached the end of the hollow. He stood and turned to find the other three cats staring at him quizzically. You sure that'll fool a rabbit?" mewed Cinderpaw, her whiskers twitching. Fireheart felt confused for a moment until he realized he'd just demonstrated his best bird-stalking technique. A rabbit would have heard the switch of his fur through the undergrowth 3 fox lengths away. Fireheart looked at Running Wing, embarrassed. The tabby warrior frowned. "How about I show you two how to creep up on a shrew?" Cinderpaw turned her bright gaze from Fireheart to Running Wing. Fireheart sighed and padded over to watch. By sun-high, Fireheart was still finding it difficult to concentrate on the training session. He kept imagining Graystripe sneaking out of camp and longed to follow him. Eventually, his restlessness overwhelmed him. He went over to Running Wing and spoke quietly into his ears. "I have a bellyache," he meowed. "Can you take over training for the rest of the day? I want to see if Yellowfang has anything for it." "I thought you seemed a little distracted," Running Wing replied. "You go back to camp. I'll take the pair out hunting." "Thanks, Running Wing," meowed Fireheart, feeling a pang of shame that Running Wing had believed him so easily. He limped across the hollow, trying to look as if he were in pain. As soon as he was safely among the trees, he broke out into a run and raced back to camp. When Graystripe had returned yesterday, he'd appeared from behind the nursery. Fireheart knew from experience that was the best place to slip through the camp boundary without being noticed. It was where Yellowfang had escaped the camp, and the clan had suspected the old medicine cat of Spotted Leaf's murder. Fireheart padded around outside the camp and sniffed at a wall of bracken. His heart sank as he picked up Graystripe's scent. Graystripe had definitely been sneaking out of camp this way, and often by the smell of it. At least the scent was stale, which meant he hadn't been out this way today. Fireheart crouched behind a nearby tree and settled down to wait. The wood was growing darker as rain clouds began to push across the sky. The shadow hid him perfectly. He made sure he was downwind so Graystripe wouldn't detect him. His belly really was aching now, tense with guilt and apprehension. He half hoped Graystripe wouldn't come. Half hoped he would, just to lead him to some quiet spot within ThunderClan's borders. Fireheart's heart lurched as he heard a rustling in the break-in wall. A gray nose was pushing its way through the fronds. Fireheart ducked his head as Graystripe looked around cautiously. After a few moments, the warrior leaped out and set off in a trot towards the training hollow. Hope flared in Fireheart's chest. Perhaps Graystripe's cold was better and he decided to join the training session. He set off after him, keeping a safe distance behind, relying on scent rather than sight to track his friend. But when the trail veered away from the path that led to the training hollow, Fireheart knew that his hope had been in vain. With an ominous sense of dread, he saw the distinctive gray rock loom ahead through the trees. Sunning Rock. Fireheart pricked his ears and opened his mouth, testing the breeze for the smell of enemy cats. At the edge of the trees, he caught a glimpse of a broad-shouldered gray cat slipping past the rocks towards Riverclan border. There was no doubt now where Graystripe was headed. As soon as his friend was out of sight, Fireheart padded forward and peered down the slope to the river. By the swaying of the undergrowth, Fireheart could guess where Graystripe was. He just hoped there weren't any Riverclan warriors watching too. Fireheart made his way down through the fronds. The river wasn't frozen anymore. He could hear the water lapping at the bank and splashing over boulders. He slowed his pace as he reached the edge of the break-in and peered out at the open shore. Graystripe was sitting on the pebbles. The Grey Warrior was looking around, his ears pricked, but Fireheart could tell from the relaxed slope of his shoulders that he wasn't listening for prey. A strange cat's call sounded in the distance. A Riverclan patrol? Fireheart's fur prickled and his muscles instinctively tensed, but Graystripe didn't move. Then Fireheart heard a rustle in the break-in beyond the river. Still, Graystripe stayed where he was. Fireheart held his breath as a face appeared from the far river bank. With barely a sound, the silver she-cat emerged from the undergrowth and slipped into the river. Fireheart felt his heart miss a beat. It was Silverstream. The she-cat had rescued his friend. She swam easily across the river. Graystripe stood up and mewed with delight, kneading the pebbles with his paws in anticipation. That's so cute. Holding his tail high, he padded to the edge of the water as she climbed onto the shore. Silverstream shook the drops of fur, and the two gray cats touched noses gently. Graystripe rubbed his muzzle along her jaw, and she lifted her chin happily. Then Silverstream stood on tiptoe and wound her slender body around his. For once, Graystripe didn't seem to mind getting wet at all, because he purred loud enough for Fireheart to hear as Silverstream pressed her damp fur against his. Dun, dun, dun! Hi, in Flame! Warrior Cat. I'm reading Warrior Cats, Fire and Ice. This is the second book. So we already read through the first book, and now we're on the second book. It's about cats that live in the forest, and there's a lot of drama. It's basically like a soap opera for kids. Because right now, we just found out that Graystripe is canoodling with a cat from a different clan. Forbidden romance. He's not allowed. Juliet and Romeo. Canoodling. We're in the middle of it. Oh my god. Okay, but that description is so cute. I can vividly imagine Graystripe stood up and mewed with delight, kneading the pebbles with his paws in anticipation. I can see that so vividly. My cat does that sometimes when she's looking at me. So cute. Let me take a sip. Let's go. Chapter 14. But bro, you've been visiting your sister. So anyways, chapter 14. Fireheart's hackles bristled with horror. How could Graystripe be so stupid? Bro. He was breaking every part of the warrior code by meeting this cat from another clan. Yeah, like you. Graystripe! Fireheart hissed as he sprang from the bushes. The two cats spun around to face him. Silverstream's ears flattened angrily. Graystripe just stared at him, startled. You followed me! Fireheart ignored his stunned meow. What are you doing? Don't you know how dangerous this is? Silverstream spoke up. It's okay. There won't be a patrol here till after sunset. You can be sure of that, can you? As if you know all your clan's movements? Fireheart growled. Silverstream lifted her chin. Actually, I do. My father is Crooked Star, the leader of RiverClan. Aha! Fireheart froze. What are you playing at? He spat at Graystripe. Could you have chosen worse? Graystripe met Fireheart's eyes for an instant, then turned to Silverstream. I'd better go, he mewed. Silverstream blinked slowly and stretched her head forward to touch his cheek. They closed their eyes and remained still for a moment. Fireheart watched, his paws prickling with alarm. Silverstream whispered something into Graystripe's ear, and the two cats stepped apart. The RiverClan she-cat raised her head and stared challenging into Fireheart's eyes before slipping back into the water. Dang, she's spicy. Graystripe bounded over to Fireheart's side. The two friends didn't speak as they raced out of RiverClan territory and back past Sunning Rocks. As they approached the camp, Graystripe slowed his pace. Fireheart slowed too. You must stop seeing her, he panted. His panic had lessened now that they were well away from RiverClan border, but he was still angry. I can't, replied Graystripe hoarsely. He coughed, his sides heaving. I don't understand, Fireheart meowed. RiverClan is completely hostile to ThunderClan at the moment. You heard Leopard Fur after Whiteclaw died? Fireheart winced, knowing that the reminder would be painful for his friend, but he couldn't stop now. How do you even know that you can trust this RiverClan cat? You don't know, Silverstream, Graystripe spat back. He stopped and sat down, his eyes glazed with pain. And there's no need to remind me about Whiteclaw. Do you think it's easy knowing I'm responsible for the death of one of Silverstream's clanmates? Fireheart snorted impatiently. Whiteclaw was an enemy warrior, not a clanmate. But Graystripe went on. Silverstream understands it was an accident. The gorge was no place for a battle. Any cat could have fallen there. Fireheart paced around as Graystripe began to lick the scent of Silverstream from his fur. It doesn't matter what Silverstream thinks. What about your loyalty to ThunderClan? He demanded. You're breaking the clan code by seeing her. Bro, why so hypocritical? Fireheart, you can't be saying these things. You're doing it too. Graystripe stopped washing. You think I don't know that? He hissed. Do you doubt my loyalty to ThunderClan? What else can I think? You can't see her without lying to the clan. What if we have a battle with RiverClan? Have you thought about that? You worry too much, Graystripe snapped. It won't come to that. Now that Broken Star's gone and WindClan is back, the clans will be at peace. RiverClan doesn't seem to be acting very peaceful, Fireheart pointed out. You know they've been hunting and sunning rocks in our territory. They've been hunting and sunning rocks since before I was kidded, scoffed Graystripe, twisting to wash the base of his tail. Fireheart carried on pacing. Graystripe just didn't seem to understand what he was doing. Okay, what if a RiverClan patrol catches you? Silverstream won't let that happen, answered Graystripe between long licks along his bushy tail. For StarClan's sake, aren't you even a bit worried? Fireheart burst out, exasperated. Graystripe stopped washing and looked at his friend. You don't get it, do you? StarClan must have planned this. Look, Silverstream wants to see me, even after what happened to Whiteclaw. We share the same thoughts. It's as if we were born into the same clan. Fireheart realized it was pointless to argue anymore. Come on, he meowed heavily. We better get back before you're missed again. He glanced at Graystripe, and they began to climb down the steep slope home. They crept back to the camp the same way Graystripe had left it. Fireheart held his breath as he squeezed through the boundary wall, angry with Graystripe for making him sneak around like this. His heart sank when they rounded the nursery to find Whitestorm approaching them. Graystripe, you should be resting, not hanging around here. That cough of yours has already begun to spread. We don't want it getting into the nursery, warned the warrior. Graystripe nodded and padded back towards the warrior's den. And you! Fireheart's ears flicked nervously as Whitestorm turned to him. Shouldn't you be training with your apprentices? I came back to get something from Yellowfang for a bellyache, Fireheart mumbled. Well, go and get it then, replied Whitestorm. And once you have, you can make yourself useful and find some fresh kill. It's a leaf bear. We can't have young warriors hanging around the camp doing nothing. Yes, White Storm, yelled Fireheart. He turned away, relieved to escape any more questions, and ran towards Yellowfang's den. Yellowfang was busy mixing herbs. There were several herbs of leaves gathered in front of her. Fireheart stood and watched her for a moment without speaking. He felt sad, drained after the row with Graystripe. He couldn't help wishing it was Spotted Leaf mixing the herbs there instead of Yellowfang. Yellowfang glanced at him. My supplies are running... How did I do her voice? My supplies are running low. I might need help to restock. Fireheart didn't reply. He was just wondering if he should confine his worries about Graystripe when she interrupted his thoughts. Looks like there's white cough in the camp, she growled, prodding impatiently at a dried leaf. 2 cases this morning. Swiftpaw? Asked Fireheart. The old medicine cat shook her head. Swiftpaw's just got a cold. It's Speckletail's kit and Patchbelt. Not serious at the moment, but we need to concentrate on getting the clan strong. Leafbear always brings the threat of green cough. Fireheart understood her concern. Green cough was a killer. Yellowfang, look again. What do you want? Oh, nothing. Just a bellyache, but it doesn't matter if you're busy. Bad? No. Bad? She meowed. No, Fireheart admitted, unable to meet her gaze. Then come back when it is. The medicine cat went back to her mixing. Fireheart turned to leave, but Yellowfang called him back. Make sure Graystripe stays in his den, will you? He's a strong warrior. If he were resting, his cough would be better by now. Fireheart's tail twitched nervously. Had she guessed that Graystripe had been slipping out of camp? He waited, his heart thudding, in case she was going to say more, but Yellowfang was frowning at the herbs again, so he padded quietly away. My dog's barking. Can you hear her? I don't know if my phone picks that up. I mean, not my phone, my mic. Where were we? Oh, it was getting dark, and Fireheart knew he only had a short time left for hunting. He quickly caught a shrew, a chaffinch, and a mouse, but hesitated before returning to camp. His fears for Graystripe felt more important than anything. Whitestorm might say if he didn't add something to the fresh kill pile in time. Fireheart came to a decision. If Graystripe won't listen to reason, maybe Silverstream would. He stashed his catch beneath the tree root and covered it with leaves. For the second time that day, he turned towards Sunning Rocks. The rain that had been threatening all day finally began to fall. It was drumming steadily on the break, and by the time Fireheart crept down the shadowy slope toward the river. Even in the rain, Silverstream's scent was easy to find. Fireheart followed the trail to the place where he had found Graystripe and Silverstream together. Hyper alert, he padded onto the shore. The dark water rushed past relentlessly, sending a shiver down Fireheart's spine. He had no desire to swim across. His fur did not have the oily protection from the water that of a river clan cat had. The Leafbear was no season to get soaking. Suddenly, Fireheart froze. He smelled river clan warriors. Bro. He dropped to a crouch and looked across the river to see Silverstream pushing her way through the trailing branches of a willow. Behind her came 2 of her clan, one of them a warrior with massive shoulders and battle-torn ears. The warrior sniffed the air suspiciously and peered around. Fireheart heard the blood roaring in his ears. Had the warrior picked up on his scent? Fireheart! Fireheart! Oh my... What is wrong with this boy? He goes into RiverClan territory to talk. Yo, she just didn't earlier in the day she say oh, there's not gonna be a patrol until sunset. And it's sunset now! He's so dumb. He's worried about Graystripe so bad, and he's not even concerned with himself, who also sneaks out and visits his sister, who is not part of the clans. Insane. I'm gonna go downstairs and check on my dog real quick because she was barking, but I'll be back very shortly. We're on chapter 15 now. Congrats on winning, Peachy. Oh, let me get comfortable. And welcome to the popcorn bucket. Go get her. Go get her. Go get her. I got another Coke. Coca-Cola. I've had so much cherry Coke that I miss Coke vanilla. It is Gogita! Gogita! I am a young woman. You're right. You're correct. Okay. Let's continue. Kira! Okay. Kira. Kira or Kira? Do you want me to do the R like that? Kira? I only asked that because I've been singing a lot recently and I was doing like dramatic while I was singing. So now it's like stuck in my head. Kira? Kira? Or Kira? 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 Kira! Okay. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 15. We're on page 92 of 170. So we're like, aren't we like kind of like slap dang in the middle? We're in the heat of the middle moment. And Fireheart's being a sussy little boy. Okay. Chapter 15. Very, very quietly, Fireheart backed into the break-in. The River Clan warrior had stopped smelling the air, but he was still looking around. Fireheart turned, still crouching, and began to creep away. He heard a small splash behind him. A cat had slipped into the river. Fireheart glanced over his shoulder, his heart pounding. Through the break-in, he could see a silver head bobbing towards him. Silverstream! But where were the two other cats? He circled cautiously, tasting the air with an open mouth. No scent of them nearby. They must have moved on. He looked back at Silverstream, swimming directly across the river. For a moment, Fireheart wondered if it was a trap, wondered if he should run, but his concern about Greystripe made him stay. The silver tabby climbed into the bank and hissed quietly. Fireheart! I know you're there. I can smell you. It's okay. Stonefur and Shadepaw have gone. Fireheart didn't move. Fireheart! I wouldn't let anything happen to Greystripe's closest friend. She sounded impatient. Believe me, for StarClan's sake! Fireheart crept slowly from his hiding place. Silverstream stared at him, her tail twitching. What are you doing here? I was looking for you, he whispered, painfully aware he was in enemy territory. Silverstream flicked her ears in alarm. Is Greystripe okay? Has his cough gotten worse? Fireheart was irritated by her concern. He didn't know how much the she-cat cared for his best friend. He's fine, he growled. His caution swept away by anger. But he won't be if he carries on meeting you. Silverstream bristled. I won't let anything bad happen to Greystripe. Oh, really? Fireheart snorted. And what could you do to protect him? I am a clan leader's daughter, meowed Silverstream. Does that give you the power to control your father's warriors? You're hardly more than an apprentice. Like you, she hissed indignantly. Yes, that's true, Fireheart admitted, and that's why I'm not sure I could protect Greystripe from the anger of his own clan, or yours, if they find out you're seeing each other. Silverstream tried to glare at him, but her eyes were clouded with emotion. I can't stop seeing him, she meowed, her voice softened to a whisper. I love him. But the tension between our clans is bad enough already. Fireheart was too angry to feel any sympathy. We know RiverClan is hunting in our territory. The defiant gleam returned to Silverstream's eyes. If ThunderClan understood why, they wouldn't begrudge what we catch there. Why? Fireheart flashed back at her. My clan is hungry. Our kids cry because their mothers have no milk. The elders are dying for lack of decent prey. Fireheart stared, taken aback. But you've got the river, he protested. Every cat knew that River Clan enjoyed the best hunting of all, fish from the river, as well as woodland prey from the fields beyond. It's not enough. Two legs have taken over our territory downstream. They built a camp there, all green leaf, and stayed as the fish were plentiful. By the time they went, the fishing was scarce, and the damage they've done to the forest means even woodland prey is harder to find. Fireheart felt a pang of pity in spite of his anger. He could guess how serious this must be for RiverClan. They used to be rich with fish, and grew fat on it every green leaf, so that they could endure the harsh moons of Leaf Bear. He stared at the she-cat with new eyes. She wasn't slim, he realized. She was skinny. As her wet coat clung to her, he could see her ribs. Suddenly, he understood Crooked Star's hostility to Blue Star's plan at the gathering. That's why you didn't want WindClan to come home. Rabbits run on the moorland all year round, Silverstream explained. They were our only hope of making it through Leaf Bear without losing kits. She shook her head slowly before lifting her gaze back to Fireheart. Does Greystripe know all this? Silverstream nodded. Fireheart looked at her, perplexed for a moment, but he couldn't let these feelings get in the way of the warrior code. Yeah, boy. And neither could his friend. What problems your clan has, you still have to stop seeing Greystripe. No, answered Silverstream, lifting her chin. Her eyes flashed. How can our love do any harm? Fireheart returned her stare. Another shiver ran down his back as the cold rain seeped through his thick pelt. Suddenly, Silverstream hissed, making Fireheart jump. You must leave. The patrol's coming. Fireheart heard a faint rustle on the other side of the river. It would be pointless and dangerous to stay any longer. The rustling noise was growing closer. Without saying goodbye, he bounded into the wet break-in and headed home. He raced back towards the stash of fresh kill he'd left behind an oak tree. Halfway home, the scent of fresh two-leg trail stopped him in his tracks, reminding him of Princess. He wondered whether this was the time to follow the trail back to the two-leg place. He wanted to know if she had kidded yet. Bro. How are you not realizing? But Princess would probably be safely tucked in her two-leg nest by now, and the clan needed fresh kill. With an uneased twinge, Fireheart realized that Greystripe wasn't the only one with divided loyalties. Finally, you stinky little boy. Rain began to drip from the end of his whiskers. He shook the drops away and bounded on towards the horde of fresh kill. The camp was silent by the time he arrived, the cats sheltering in their dens. Fireheart crossed the muddy clearing and dropped his catch into the pile. Taking a piece for himself, he trotted towards the warrior's den. There was no way he was eating outside tonight. He pushed his head inside the den. Greystripe was dozing, to Fireheart's relief. He might actually get better if he wasn't charging through the forest looking for Silverstream. Yellowfang hasn't taken any fresh kill yet. White Storm meowed, sounded from the shadow. She's been too busy. I think she would appreciate that mouse you're carrying. Fireheart nodded and backed out again. If Yellowfang was too busy to fetch food, it must mean the sickness in camp was getting worse. Fireheart raced across the clearing, stopping only to pick up another mouse before hurrying through the front tunnel. A tabby kit lay in the nest of moss in the break-in at the edge of the clearing. Yellowfang crouched beside it, trying to persuade it to eat some herbs. The kit snuffled pitifully, blinking up at her with streaming eyes and nose. Fireheart realized this must be the kit with white cough. Yellowfang turned when she heard Fireheart arrive. Is that for me? She meowed, looking at the mice hanging from Fireheart's mouth. He nodded and dropped them to the ground. Thanks. Now that you're here, why don't you see if you can persuade this kit to take his medicine? She padded over to the mice, moving stiffly from her old shoulder injury, and began to gnaw on one hungrily. Fireheart approached the kit. It looked up at him, opening its tiny mouth in rasping, painful cough. Fireheart gently pushed a small green herb towards it. If you want to be a warrior, you have to get used to swallowing these horrible things, he mewed. When you make your trip to the Moonstone, you have to eat herbs far worse than this. The kit looked wonderingly at him with half-closed eyes. Think of it as practice, Fireheart urged. Practice for when you become a warrior. The kit reached forward and took a tentative mouthful. Fireheart gave him an encouraging purr. Yellowfang appeared at his side. Well done. she meowed. She gestured with her nose, and Fireheart understood she wanted to talk to him. He followed her to the shelter of the tall walk where she slept. The rain was still falling, and Yellowfing's matted gray fur was soaked, her sodded tail dragging in the dirt. Bluestar has white cough, she meowed gravely. But white cough isn't that serious, right? Fireheart shook her head. It came on very quickly, she meowed. It hasn't affected her badly. Oh, and it's affected her badly. Oh, God. Fireheart's stomach tightened as he remembered the dwindling numbers of lives left on the clan leader. I warned her to stay away from the other sick cats, but she wanted to see them. When Yellowfing went on, she's sleeping in her den at the moment. Frostfur is with her. The fear in Yellowfing's eyes made Fireheart wonder if she knew the truth about Bluestar's lives. Fireheart had assumed that he was the only cat in the camp who Bluestar had shared her secret with. The rest of the clan thought she had 3 lives left, but perhaps the medicine cat could sense these things instinctively. The truth was, if Bluestar lost this life, she would only have 1 more. Bum 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 bum. Chapter 16. Hi, cat! Finally, Fireheart has realized he is literally doing the same thing with his sister. Chapter 16. The rain continued through the night and into the next morning. By the sun high, the clouds began to clear. Hi, Boxed! A somber air hung over the clearing as the clan waited for the news of their leader. Did you read this too, Cat? You were good! We're on the 2nd book right now. We're in Fire and Ice. Fireheart crept from the path of brambles by the boundary wall, where he'd sheltered since dawn. He padded over to Bluestar's den in the side of the high rock. There was no sound from inside. As he turned away, he ran into Willowpelt carrying food to the nursery. She tipped her head questioningly to her side. Bluestar knew she was hoping for news of Bluestar. Nothing to report, I'm afraid, he shrugged. Fireheart had given Cinderpaw and Breaking Paw a day's rest from training. He could see them now, lounging outside their den, looking bored. Fireheart knew he had to let them down, but he wanted to stay in camp while Bluestar was sick. At least Tigerclaw wasn't here to criticize his decision. The great deputy had taken out a dawn patrol. Suddenly, the lichen at Bluestar's den twitched and Frostfur burst through. She raced across the clearing to Yellowfing's den and reappeared within moments with the medicine cat behind her. Fireheart bounded over to Bluestar's den just as Frostfur and Yellowfing pushed through the hanging lichen. He stopped outside and sat down, his heart racing. Frostfur peered out. What's wrong? Fireheart asked, his voice trembling. Frostfur closed her eyes. She has green cough, she told him bleakly. Stand watch and make sure no one comes inside. She ducked back inside. Fireheart sat motionless as shock flooded through him. Green cough! Bluestar really was in danger of losing another life. A sharp yowl outside the camp made him turn and look toward the gorse tunnel. Dustpaw exploded to the clearing and skidded to a halt beside Fireheart. I've come from Tigerclaw, he panted. I have a message for Bluestar. She's sick, Fireheart replied. You can't go in. Dustpaw flicked his tail impatiently. Tigerclaw needs to see her at the Thunderpath. It's very urgent. What's wrong? Dustpaw glared at him. Tigerclaw asked for Bluestar, he sneered, not some kitty pet pretending to be a warrior. Fury shot through Fireheart and he unsheathed his claws. Bluestar can't leave the camp, he growled. He flattened his ears and moved so that he blocked the entrance to the leader's den. Fireheart's right. Yellowfing rough meow sounded from behind him. She had come out of Bluestar's den. Dustpaw looked at the medicine cat, shrinking beneath her orange gaze. Tigerclaw found evidence of Shadow Clan warriors in our territory, he meowed. They've invaded our hunting grounds. In spite of his fear for Bluestar, Fireheart felt his lip curl in anger. How dare they? After what ThunderClan had done for them. Yellowfing wasn't interested in Dustpaw's report. She turned to Fireheart, her eyes filled with urgency. Fireheart, she meowed. Tell me, do you know whether there is any catnip in the two-leg place? Catnip? Fireheart echoed. I need it for Blue Star, Yellowfang explained. It's a herb I haven't used in moons, but I think it will help her. The medicine cat had Fireheart's full attention now. She continued, it has a soft leaves and an irresistible scent. Fireheart interrupted her. Yes, I know where to find some. He had never seen it in the woods, but as a kid he had rolled in a patch in his 2 legs home. Good, replied Yellowfang. I need as much as you can carry, and fast. What about Tiger Claw? Demanded Dustpaw. Tiger Claw will have to deal with it on his own for the moment, Yellowfang snapped. Cinderpaw had been watching them from the tree stump. She bounded up. Deal with what himself? She meowed excitedly. Fireheart signaled her to be quiet with an urgent flick of his tail. Dustpaw ignored the apprentice. Dude, so much is happening right now. Wait. Dustpaw ignored the apprentices. ShadowClan could be in our territory by now, he hissed. Cinderpaw's eyes widened, but she held her tongue. Yellowfang paused to think. Where's Whitestorm? She asked. Patrolling Sunning Rocks with Sandpaw and Mousefur, Dustpaw answered. Yellowfang nodded. With Blue Star sick and Fireheart fetching catnip, we can't risk sending any more warriors out of camp. If ShadowClan is in our territory, they might attack here. They've done it before, she reminded him grimly. If I'm quick getting the catnip, Fireheart put in, I could meet Tiger Claw afterwards and bring back his message for Blue Star. Dustpaw's eyes flashed. But he wants Blue Star to see the evidence for herself. Dude. She's sick. ShadowClan has left the remains of fresh kill on our side of the Thunderpath. Yellowfang silenced him with a growl. Blue Star doesn't need to see the evidence, she rasped. The word of her deputy ought to be enough. Tiger Claw just needs to be told Blue Star can't come, meowed Fireheart. I'll take the message to him after I fetch the catnip. Kidnap. Where is he? I'll go, Dustpaw spat. Do you think you're a better messenger than me because you're a warrior and I'm just an apprentice? He threw Fireheart a look of pure hatred. But Yellowfang had no time for quarrels. The clan will need protecting while Fireheart is gone, she hissed at Dustpaw, flattening her ears. Isn't that duty important enough for you? Now, where is Tiger Claw? Beside the burnt ash tree that overhangs the Thunderpath, Dustpaw replied sulkily. Right. Yellowfang growled. Go on now. Fireheart, quick. As Fireheart sped away across the clearing, he heard small paw steps sprinting after him. Fireheart, wait! Go back to your den, Cinderpaw, he meowed over his shoulder without slowing down. But I could go give Tiger Claw the message while you get the catnip. Fireheart stopped in his tracks and turned to face his young apprentice. Cinderpaw, if there were any ShadowClan warriors around, you need to stay in camp. Cinderpaw looked crushed, but Fireheart didn't have time to worry about her feelings. Go back to your den, he growled. Without waiting to see her reaction, he turned and charged out of camp. He raced through the tall pines and wove quickly through the undergrowth that backed into the two-leg place. As he scrambled onto the fence that bordered his home, the familiar smell of the garden filled his nostrils. Memories flooded into his mind, making him dizzy for a moment. He thought of his sunny afternoons playing in the garden with the toys of his two-legs place held for him. He almost expected to hear them rattling his dinner and calling his kitty pet name. Then he thought of Blue Star, fighting against Green Cough. Fireheart leaped down into the garden and bounded across the lawn to the place where he remembered the catnip had grown. He inhaled deeply, his mouth open, and breathed out with relief. The enticing scent was still here somewhere. Fireheart padded along the row of plants, sniffing the air. He couldn't see the catnip, and all the time he was getting nearer and nearer to his old two-leg nest. Fireheart's steps grew slower. Sense of his kithood mingled with the catnip now, confusing him. Fireheart shook his head to clear it. He concentrated on the catnip scent. He pushed his way under a large bush, still dripping from the overnight rain, and found a large patch of the soft, fragrant herb. The recent frost had killed some of the leaves, but the sheltering bush had protected enough for Yellowfang's use. Fireheart bit off as many leaves as he could carry. Their flavor seeped deliciously into his mouth, but he was careful not to chew, much as he wanted to. Blue Star would need every drop of their precious juice. With his jaws full, he turned and raced back up the garden. He leaped over the fence and pelted back through the forest, ignoring the brambles that dragged at his coat. He felt as if his lungs would burst. With his jaw closed to hold the herbs, he could breathe only through his nose. Yellowfang was waiting for him at the gorse tunnel. Fireheart dropped the catnip at her paws and took a long gulp of air, his hides heaving. With a grateful look, Yellowfang picked up the leaves and rushed towards Bluestar's den. As he sat gasping for air, Fireheart realized he could smell Cinderpaw's excited scent in the gorse tunnel. He sniffed the ground around him. Had Cinderpaw left camp after he'd warned her about the Shadow Clan warriors? Fireheart dashed to the apprentice's den and stuck his head inside. Brigandpaw was alone, sleeping. "Where's Cinderpaw?" Fireheart meowed. Brigandpaw lifted his head sleepily. What? "Cinderpaw, where is she?" "I don't know," answered Brigandpaw, confused. Fireheart withdrew his head and looked around the clearing. Frostfur was pacing outside Bluestar's den, her coat ruffled with agitation. Hold on, I'm out of sync. Okay. Fireheart wondered what to do. He didn't have time to find Cinderpaw himself, and he didn't want to tell the other warriors that she was missing. Graystripe, he thought suddenly. Graystripe could look for her while he went to find Tigerclaw. Fireheart hurried to the warrior's den and slipped inside. Graystripe's nest was empty. A flash of anger shot through Fireheart. Where was his friend when he needed him? As if he couldn't guess. Fireheart snorted crossly. Cinderpaw would have to fend for herself until he had found Tigerclaw and told him Bluestar was sick. Brah. Fireheart raced through the gorse tunnel and began the journey to the Thunderpath. As he followed the trail side of the ravine into the woods, he was aware that Cinderpaw's scent hung in the air. She must have come this way. Of course, she had gone to meet Tigerclaw herself. The fur of Fireheart's spine prickled with worry and frustration. How could she be so foolish? As he skirted Snake Rocks, Fireheart began to smell the Thunderpath and hear the roar of the monsters. Suddenly, a shrill, high-pitched squeal sounded from the edge of the trees. Fireheart felt the blood run cold in his veins. It was the same cry he had heard in his dream. He raced out of the trees and skidded to a halt on the grass border beside the Thunderpath. He looked desperately up and down the verge and spotted an ash tree, charred by lightning. That must be the place where Dustpaw had said Tigerclaw wanted to meet Bluestar. But the deputy was still some way in the distance, padding calmly towards the ash. Fireheart broke into a run. The verge was very narrow here, with scarce any room for a rabbit, but Fireheart kept going. He called out to Tigerclaw as he ran. "Did you hear that cry?" But the roar of an approaching monster drowned out his words. Fireheart shuddered as it passed, waiting for the noise to die away as he could call out to Tigerclaw. Then he noticed something beside the ash, a dark shape on the thin strip of grass. With a sickening jolt, he recognized a small body lying motionless beside the Thunderpath. It was Cinderpaw. Bruh. Poor Cinderpaws, right. Yo, so much is going on right now. Graystripe's missing. Cinderpaw just is dead. Maybe. Bluestar's about to lose a life, maybe? Holy, Tigerclaw's being a little jerk face. Why would he ask Bluestar to come all the way out? He knows she's sick, weirdo. Chapter 17. We have to continue. I need to know what happens. Fireheart stared in horror. Ahead of him, Tigerclaw had reached the limp body and stood looking down at it, his massive shoulders rigid with shock. Fireheart forced himself nearer. Tentatively, he stretched his head forward and sniffed Cinderpaw's flank. She smelled of Thunderpath. One of her hind legs was twisted and glistened with blood. Fireheart was trembling so much that he could hardly stand. Then he saw her side moving. She was still breathing. Speechless with relief, he looked up at Tigerclaw. She's alive, the deputy growled. He fixed his amber stare on Fireheart. What was she doing here? She came to find you, Fireheart whispered. You mean you sent her here? Fireheart's eyes widened with surprise. Did Tigerclaw think he would be so stupid? I told her to stay in camp, he protested. She came by herself. Because I couldn't make her listen to me, he realized with dismay. Tigerclaw snorted. Brah! We must get her home. He bent down with his mouth open, reaching for the small, crumpled body, but Fireheart dipped his head and picked up the apprentice by the scruff of her neck before Tigerclaw could touch her. He began to drag Cinderpaw into the woods as gently as he could, her body hanging limply between his front paws. Darkstripe came bounding up to them. "I've checked Snake Rocks again, Tigerclaw. There's no sign of Shadow." He broke off when he saw Cinderpaw dangling from Fireheart's mouth. "What's happened?" Fireheart didn't wait to hear Tigerclaw's answer. He scrambled away through the trees with his precious burden. He could have prevented this accident if only he'd made Cinderpaw listen to him. If he'd been a better mentor. Now her body was damaged and bleeding as she made no sound as he dangled from his jaw. Her hind paws scored a shallow trail in the leaves as, carefully, Fireheart carried her home. Cinderpaw! Yellowfang was not in her clearing. The two kids with White Cough were curled together in their shelter, fast asleep. Yellowfang is overworked right now. She has the clan leader sick. She has two kids sick. Now Fireheart's bringing his apprentice in and she's dying midst. Oh my god. Yellowfang needs a raise. Yellowfang I should not have taken this job. Fireheart laid Cinderpaw on the cold ground, then made a nest for her in the break-in by circling around and around. When he had finished, he grasped Cinderpaw's scruff and gently pulled her inside. "Fireheart?" Yellowfang meowed from the clearing. Tigerclaw must have told her about Cinderpaw. Fireheart hopped out of the nest. "She's in here," he croaked, feeling weak with relief at seeing the medicine cat. "Let me look," Yellowfang ordered. She brushed past Fireheart and climbed into the break-in to examine Cinderpaw. Fireheart sat down and waited. At last, Yellowfang jumped out. "She's hurt very badly," she meowed, her eyes dark with concern, "but I think I might be able to save her." "Yahoo!" It was a tiny hope, like a single sparkling dewdrop clinging to his pelt. Fireheart felt it glisten for a moment before Yellowfang went on. "I can't promise anything." She looked deep into Fireheart's eyes and murmured, "Bluestar is very sick, and I can do no more for her. StarClan must decide her fate now." Fireheart felt his eyes cloud with emotion. He could hardly see Yellowfang's face, but he heard her speak to him again, her voice gentle. "Go sit with Bluestar," she meowed. "She was asking for you earlier. I will take care of Cinderpaw." Fireheart nodded blindly and turned away. Bluestar had been his mentor, and more than that, there had been a bond between them since their first meeting, but he felt torn. He should be with Cinderpaw, too. A shadow loomed at the far end of the fern tuggle. Tigerclaw was sitting at the entrance to Yellowfang's den, his head held high as usual. Fireheart's shoulders stiffened with anger. Why wouldn't the great warrior show some signs of sorrow? After all, Cinderpaw had come looking for him. And for what? There hadn't been any evidence of ShadowClan's fresh kill that Fireheart had noticed. He walked past Tigerclaw without a word and headed across the clearing towards Bluestar's den. Longtail was sitting on guard outside. He glanced sideways but didn't try to stop Fireheart as the young warrior pushed through the lichen. Goldenflower, one of the queens, was inside. Fireheart could see her eyes shining in the gloom, and the pale fur of Bluestar lying curled in her nest. Goldenflower leaned forward and gently licked Bluestar's head to cool it, like a mother nursing her kits. Fireheart's heart ached as he thought of Cinderpaw. Would Frostfur be at her daughter's side by now? Would Frostfur be at her daughter's side by now? "Yellowfang's given her catnip and fever flu," Goldenflower murmured to Fireheart. "We can only watch and wait now." She got to her paws and touched Fireheart's nose with her muzzle. "Will you be okay to sit with her?" she asked gently. Fireheart nodded and Goldenflower padded softly out of the den. Fireheart lowered himself onto his belly, stretched his forepaws in front of him so that they just touched his leader's face. He lay very still, his eyes fixed on Bluestar's limp body. She didn't even have the strength to cough now. Fireheart could hear her breathing in the darkness, shallow and rasping, and he listened to the faltering rhythm as the night slowly passed. Her breathing stopped just before dawn. Fireheart had almost dozed off when he realized the cave was silent. There was no noise from the camp outside either, just a deathly hush, as if the whole clan were holding its breath. Bluestar was completely still. Fireheart knew she was with StarClan, preparing for her remaining life. He would watch Bluestar lose a life before. He felt his fur prickle at the eerie peace that seemed to unfold her body, but there was nothing he could do, so he waited. Suddenly, Bluestar gasped. "Fireheart, is that you?" she meowed in a croaky voice. Yes, Bluestar, Fireheart murmured. I'm here. I've lost another life. Bluestar's voice was weak, but the relief made Fireheart want to reach forward and lick her between the ears, as Goldenflower had done. When I lose this one, I will not be able to return. Fireheart swallowed hard. The thought of the clan losing its great leader pained him, but the thought of losing his mentor and friend hurt even more. How do you feel? Shall I fetch Yellowfang? Bluestar shook her head slowly. The fever has gone. I am well enough. I just need to rest. Very well, meowed Fireheart. Light was beginning to filter through the lichen, and his head swam from his wakeful night. You must be tired, meowed Bluestar. Go and get some sleep. Yes, Fireheart heaved himself up. His legs felt stiff from laying so long. Is there anything you need? No, just tell Yellowfang what has happened, answered Bluestar. Thank you for sitting with me. Fireheart tried to purr, but it caught in his throat. There would be time for more words later. He pushed his way out of the lichen. Outside, the harsh brightness made him blink. It had snowed in the night. Fireheart stared in amazement. He had never seen snow before. His two-leg owners had kept him shut inside when he was a very young kid, whenever it was cold. But he'd heard the clan elders talk of it. He nodded to Darkstripe, who had replaced Longtail's guardian at Bluestar's den, and stepped into the strange powder. It felt wet and cold, crunching loudly under his paws. Tiger Claw was standing in the clearing. It was still snowing, and the flakes settled on the tabby's thick fur without melting. Fireheart could hear him giving orders to the nursery wall for the nursery wall to be padded with leaves to keep out the cold. Then I want the hole to be scraped out where we can store prey, the ThunderClan deputy instructed. Use the snow to line and cover it with more snow once it has been filled. We may as well make use of the snow while it's here. Warriors raced around Tiger Claw, following his orders. Mousefur, Longfur, organize some hunting parties. We need as much fresh kill as we can before prey takes on their burrowing for good. Tiger Claw spotted Fireheart padding across the clearing. Fireheart, wait, he called. Oh, I suppose you'll have to rest. Can't imagine you'll be any use on a hunting party this morning. Fireheart stared at the Dark Warrior, hostility like bile rising in his throat. I'm gonna see how Cinderpaw is first. Tiger Claw held his gaze for a moment. How's Bluestar? Mistrust ruffled Fireheart's fur like a cold breeze. He'd heard Bluestar lie to Tiger Claw once before about how many lives she had left. I am no medicine cat, he answered. I can't say. Tiger Claw snorted impatiently, then turned away and went back to giving orders. Fireheart walked over to Yellowfang's den, relieved to escape the frantic bustle of the camp. His heart began to pound as he wondered the state he would find Cinderpaw in. Yellowfang, he called. Hush! Yellowfang sprang from Cinderpaw's breaking neck. She's sleeping at last. She's had a hard night. I couldn't give her poppy seeds to ease the pain until she recovered from the shock. But she's gonna live. Fireheart's legs felt wobbly with relief. I can't be sure for a few days. She's hurt inside, and one of her hind legs is badly broken. But it'll mend, won't it? Fireheart pleaded desperately. She'll be training again by New Leaf. Yellowfang shook her head, her yellow eyes sympathetic. Fireheart, whatever happens, Cinderpaw will never be a warrior now. Fireheart's head spun. He was dizzy with lack of sleep, and this devastating news snapped the last of his energy. Cinderpaw had been entrusted to him for her warrior training. Memories of the naming ceremony pricked like cruel thorns. Cinderpaw's excitement, Frostfur's motherly pride. Does Frostfur know? He meowed, feeling hollow. Yes, she was here until dawn. She's back in the nursery now. There are other kits to tend to. I'll ask one of the elders to sit with Cinderpaw. She needs to be kept warm. I can do that. Fireheart padded over to the nest where Cinderpaw was sleeping and looked inside. She squirmed. Her blood-smeared sides heaved, and as though she were fighting a battle as she slept. Yellowfang gently nudged Fireheart with her nose. You need to get some sleep, she rasped. Leave Cinderpaw to me. Fireheart stayed where he was. Bluestar lost another life, he blurted out. Oh, Bluestar lost another life, he burst out. Yellowfang blinked for a moment, then lifted her head to StarClan. She didn't utter a word, but Fireheart could see the anguish in her orange eyes. You know, don't you? He murmured. Yellowfang lowered his chin to gaze into his eyes. That this is Bluestar's last life? Yes, I know. A medicine cat can tell these things. Will the rest of the clan be able to tell as well? Fireheart asked, thinking of Tiger Claw. Yellowfang narrowed her eyes. No, she will be no weaker in this life than she was any of her others. Fireheart blinked gratefully at her. Now, Yellowfang ordered, do you want some poppy seeds to help you sleep? Fireheart shook his head. Part of him longed for the deep, easy sleep they would bring, but if Tiger Claw was right and Shadow Clan really was about to attack Thunder Clan's borders, he didn't want to dull his senses now. He might need to defend the camp. Greystripe was back in the warrior's den. Fireheart did not speak to him. His rage at finding him missing the night before lingered like a dull bruise. He padded silently to his nest, circled once, and settled down to wash. Greystripe looked up. You're back, then. He sounded edgy, as if he wanted to say more. Fireheart stopped licking his forepaw and stared at Greystripe. You tried to warn Silverstream off, Greystripe hissed furiously. Willowpelt, who was dozing on the other side of the den, opened one eye and then closed it again. Greystripe lowered his voice. Stay out of it, will ya? He spat. I'm gonna keep on seeing her, whatever you do or say. Fireheart snorted and flashed a resentful glance at his friend. His talk with Silverstream seemed so long ago, he'd almost forgotten it. But he hadn't forgotten that Greystripe had been missing when he needed help finding Cinderpaw. He laid his dead head angrily on his muddy forepaws and closed his eyes. Cinderpaw was battling against her injuries, and Bluestar was on her 9th life. As far as Fireheart was concerned, Greystripe could do what he liked. Boy, does Greystripe not know what happened? Did he sneak in and then pretend to be asleep and so nobody told him? Oh my god. Like, you wouldn't just say that to someone who had their apprentice get hit by a car, or the leader just has been extremely sick. Greystripe, bruh. How long have we been going? Oh, not very long. All right. Chapter 18. Greystripe had already left his nest when Fireheart awoke the next day. He could tell it was sun-high by the light that glowed through the branches. He rose, his body still weary with grief, and he pushed his head out of the den. Snow must have been falling all morning, for it lay thick on the ground and had drifted against the den. Fireheart found himself gazing out over a white wall that was high as his shoulders. The usual bustle of camp seemed to be muted. Fireheart could see Willowpelt and Halftail whispering on the far side of the clearing. Mousefur was picking her way laboriously through the store of Freshkill, a rabbit dangling from her jaws. She stopped and sneezed, then carried on. Fireheart lifted one paw and rested it on top of the snow. It felt hard at first, but when he pressed down, the thin covering of ice cracked and he gasped as his legs plunged into the drift. Fireheart snorted as he found himself up to his muzzle in snow. Shaking his head and lifting his chin, he leapt forward, only to sink into the more deep snow. He struggled on, alarm rising in his chest. He felt as if he were drowning in the snow. Then all of a sudden there was a solid ground under his paw. He had reached the edge of the clearing. The snow here was only mouse-length deep, and Fireheart sat down with a soft crunch, relieved. He tensed when he saw Greystripe plowing through the snow towards him. The Grey Warrior seemed unbothered by it, protected from its damp chilly by his thick pelt. His face was shadowed with sorrow. Have you heard about Bluestar? He asked as he neared. She lost her life to Greencough, bruh. Fireheart flicked his ears impatiently. He could have told his friend that last night. I know, he snapped. I was with her. Why didn't you tell me? Mewed Greystripe, shocked. You weren't exactly in a friendly mood last night, if you remember. Anyway, if you aren't off breaking the warrior code, you might know what was going on in your own clan, he snarled. Greystripe's ears twitched uncomfortably. I've just seen Cinderpaw, he meowed. I'm so sorry she's sick. Sick? How is she? She looks bad, but Yellowfang said she's pulling through, replied Greystripe. Fireheart stared anxiously across the clearing and stood up. He wanted to see his apprentice for himself. Greystripe meowed. She's asleep now. Frostfur's with her, and Yellowfang doesn't want anyone else disturbing her. Fireheart flinched involuntarily. How was he going to tell Frostfur that it was his fault Cinderpaw went to the Thunderpath? Instinctively, Fireheart turned to Greystripe, seeking reassurance, but Greystripe was trudging across the snowy clearing toward the nursery. Off to see Silverstream, Fireheart guessed resentfully, sheathing and unsheathing his claws as he watched his friend disappear from sight. Just left? Fireheart noticed Speckletail, the oldest queen from the nursery and the mother of the kit with white cough, only when she stopped right in front of him. Is Tiger Claw inside? She asked, pointing with her nose to the warrior's den. Fireheart shook his head. Speckletail mewed. There's green cough in the nursery. 2 of Brindleface's kits are sick. Green cough, Fireheart gasped, shaking from his anger. Will they die? Bruh, can you ask that? They might, but Leaf Bear's always brings green cough, Speckletail pointed out gently. Surely there's something we can do, Fireheart protested. Yellowfang will do what she can, answered Speckletail, but in the end, it's all up to StarClan. A new flash of fury flared in Fireheart's belly as Speckletail turned away and padded to the nursery. How could the clan tolerate these tragedies? He felt overwhelmed by the need to leave camp, to escape the gloomy air that the rest of the clan seemed content to breathe. He jumped and raced blindly across the snowy clearing, through the gorse tunnel and out into the forest. He was startled to find himself heading instinctively for the training hollow. The thought that he should be there teaching Cinderpaw was more than he could bear. As he veered to avoid it, he heard the voices of Whitestorm and Brakenpaw. The white-furred warrior must have taken Brakenpaw for training while Fireheart had been sleeping. Had no cat stopped to grieve for Bluestar's lost life? Fireheart's throat tightened as he fought back his rage and ran on, desperate to put as much distance as possible between himself and camp. He finally stopped beneath tall pines, his sides heaving with effort of running through the snow. There was a stillness here that calmed him. Even the birds had stopped singing. Fireheart felt as if he were the only creature in the world. He didn't know where he was going. He just padded on, letting the woods soothe him. As he walked, his mind cleared. He could do nothing for Cinderpaw, and Greystrip was out of reach, but he might be able to help Yellowfang fight the green cough. He would fetch some catnip. Fireheart turned his steps toward his old kitty pet home, weaving through the brambles in the old oak woods that backed the two-leg place. He leapt to the top of the fence at the end of his old home, nudging a ridge of snow into the garden below. It fell with a soft clump. Fireheart peered down into the garden. He could see tracks smaller than cats. A squirrel had been out hunting for its store of nuts. It didn't take Fireheart long to pluck a generous mouthful of leaves from the catnip bushes. He wanted to take as much as he could. Its soft leaves might not survive this winter. This could be his last chance to gather it. With his mouth crammed, Fireheart stared towards the swinging flap that he used as a kit. He wondered if his two-leg housefolk still lived here. They'd been kind to him. He had spent his first Leaf Bear cosseted in their nest, warm and safe from the cruelties of Thunderpaths and Green Cough. The scent of this catnip must be going to my head, he thought sharply. He bounded up the garden and onto the fence with a single leap. He was unnerved by how much the thought of his two-leg home had stirred him. Did he really want the safety and predictability of a kitty pet's life? Of course not! Fireheart shook the thought away, but the idea of returning to camp didn't appeal to him yet. Suddenly, he thought of Princess. Fireheart raced along the edge of the woods to the part of the two-leg place where his sister's garden lay. Her fence was in sight. When her fence was in sight, he dug down in the snow and buried the catnip beneath the layer of dead leaves to protect it from the cold. He was still panting from his run when he leaped onto the fence and called out to Princess. Then he scrambled back down into the woods to wait for her. The snow made his paws ache with cold as he paced restlessly under an oak tree. Perhaps she's kidding, he told himself, as shut inside. He had just persuaded himself he wasn't going to see her today when he heard of her familiar mew. He looked up to see her standing on top the fence. Fireheart felt a shiver in anticipation. Her belly was no longer swollen. Princess must have kidded. He breathed in her scent as she approached it and felt it warm him. You've kidded, he meowed. Princess gently touched his nose with hers. Yes, she mewed softly. Did it go okay? Are the kits all right? Princess purred. It was fine. I have 5 healthy kits, she meowed, her eyes glowing with pleasure. Fireheart licked her head as she meowed. I didn't expect to see you out in this weather. I came to find some catnip, Fireheart told her. There's green cough in the camp. Princess's eyes clouded with worry. Are many of your clan ill? 3 so far. Fireheart hesitated for a moment, then meowed sadly. Our leader lost another life last night. Another life? Echoed Princess. What do you mean? I thought it was only an old she-cat's tale that cats have 9 lives. Bluestar was granted 9 lives by StarClan because she's the leader of our clan, Fireheart explained. Princess looked at him in awe. Then it's true! Only for the clan leaders. The rest of us only have 1 life, like you, and like Cinderpaw. Fireheart's voice trailed away. Cinderpaw? Princess must have detected a grief in his voice. Princess must have detected grief in his voice. Fireheart gazed into her eyes, and the thoughts that had been troubling him began to tumble out. My apprentice, he meowed. She was hit on the thunder path last night. His voice cracked as he remembered finding her broken, bleeding body. She's badly hurt. She might still die. And even if she survives, she'll never become a warrior. Princess moved closer and nuzzled him. You spoke so fondly of her last time you were here, she mewed. She sounded so full of energy and fun. The accident shouldn't have happened, Fireheart growled. I was supposed to meet Tigerclaw. He'd asked for Bluestar, but Bluestar was ill, so I offered to go instead. I had to fetch catnip first, but Cinderpaw went in my place. Princess looked alarmed and Fireheart added quickly, I told her not to, but perhaps if I'd been a better mentor, she would have listened to me. She was hit by a car, yeah. I'm sure you're a good mentor, Princess tried to soothe him, but Fireheart hardly heard her. I don't know why Tigerclaw wanted Bluestar to meet him in such a dangerous place, he spat. He said there was evidence that ShadowClan had invaded our territory, but when I arrived there was no sense of them at all. Was it a trap? Princess suggested. Fireheart looked into his sister's questioning eyes and suddenly began to wonder. Why would Tigerclaw want to hurt Cinderpaw? It was Bluestar he asked for, Princess pointed out. Fireheart's fur bristled. Could his sister be right? Tigerclaw had summoned Bluestar to the narrowest part of the Thunderpath verge. Surely even Tigerclaw wouldn't deliberately put his clan leader in danger. Fireheart shook the thought away. I don't know, he stammered. Everything's so confusing at the moment. Even Graystripe's hardly speaking to me. Why? Fireheart shrugged. It's too complicated to explain. Princess nestled to him in the snow, pressing her soft fur against his. I just feel like such an outsider at the moment, Fireheart went on gloomily. It's not easy being different. Different? Princess looked puzzled. Being born a kitty pet, when all the other cats are clan-born. You seem like a clan-born cat to me, mewed Princess. Fireheart blinked gratefully at her. She went on, but if you're not happy in the clan, you can always come home with me. My housefolk will look after you, I'm sure. Fireheart pictured himself living his old kitty pet life, warm, cozy, and safe. But he couldn't forget how he'd watched the woods from his 2-leg garden and dreamed of being out in the forest. A breeze stirred his thick fur and carried the scent of a mouse to his nose. Fireheart shook his head firmly. Thank you, Princess, he meowed, but I belong with my clan now. I could never be happy in a 2-leg nest. I would miss the scents of the forest and sleeping beneath Silverpelt, hunting my own food and sharing it with my clan. Her sister's eyes gleamed. It sounds like a good life, she purred. She looked down shyly at her paws. Sometimes I even stare into the forest and wonder what it feels like to live out there. Fireheart purred and stood up. Then you understand? Princess nodded. Are you going back now? Yes, I must take the catnip to Yellowfang while it's fresh. Princess stretched her head forward and pressed her muzzle into the side. Perhaps my kids will be strong enough to meet you next time you come. Aww! Graystripe, you believe it! As he turned to leave, excitement tingled in Fireheart's belly. I hope so, he meowed. As he turned to leave, Princess called, Take care, brother. I don't want to lose you again. You won't, Fireheart promised. Good thinking, Fireheart, purred Whitestorm. He had seen Fireheart pad back into the camp with his jaws crammed with catnip. Fireheart's mouth had been watering all the way home, although he was beginning to think never be happy to see another... He'd be happy never to see another catnip bush again, but he was happier than when he'd left the camp. His sister had safely kidded and his head felt clearer. He was headed towards Yellowfang Den when Tigerclaw appeared at his side. More catnip? Observed the great Tabby, his eyes suspicious. I wondered where you'd gone. Brigandpa can take that to Yellowfang. Brigandpa was helping to clear some snow away nearby. Saliva-ridden catnip. Fireheart dropped a bunch of leaves onto the ground. I wanted to visit Cinderpaw, he meowed to Tigerclaw. Later! growled the deputy. He waited while Breaking-Paw picked up the catnip and carried it off to Yellowfang's den. Then he turned to Fireheart. I want to know where Graystripe has been going. Fireheart felt his heat rising under his fur. I don't know, he replied, holding Tiger Claw's gaze. Tiger Claw stared back at him, his eyes cold and hostile. When you see him, he hissed, you can tell him he's confined to the fallen oak. Yellowfang's old den. Fireheart glanced at the tangled bushes where the medicine cat had lived when she first came into ThunderClan camp. When she was still considered a ShadowClan outcast, Swiftpaw was there, laying beside Speckletail's dark tabby kit. Cats with white cough are confined there until they are well again. But Graystripe only has a cold, Fireheart protested. A cold is bad enough. He'll stay at the fallen oak. Tiger Claw repeated. Cats with green cough are to nest with Yellowfang. We must stop the sickness from spreading. The deputy's eyes flashed unsympathetically. Fireheart wondered if he thought the illness was a sign of weakness. It is for the good of the clan, Tiger Claw added. Yes, Tiger Claw, I'll tell Graystripe. Keep away from Blue Star, the deputy warned. But a green cough has left her, Fireheart objected. I am aware of that, but our den still reeks of the sickness. Can't afford to have any of my warriors falling ill. Whitestorm tells me that RiverClan warriors have been sent even closer to camp. He also told me he had to train Breaking-Paw today. I expect you to take charge of Breaking-Paw's training tomorrow. Fireheart nodded. May I go see Cinderpaw now? Tiger Claw looked at him. I doubt if Yellowfang has put her anywhere near the cats with green cough. Fireheart added with a flash of irritation, I won't get infected. Yellowfang being experiencing 2020 all by himself. Very well, Tiger Claw agreed and stalked away. Fireheart met Breaking-Paw in the middle of the clearing. Yellowfang was very grateful for the catnip, Breaking-Paw mewed. Good, answered Fireheart. By the way, I'm teaching you how to catch birds tomorrow. I hope you're ready for a bit of tree climbing. Breaking-Paw's whiskers twitched excitedly. Definitely. I'll meet you in the training hollow. Fireheart nodded and carried on into Yellowfang's den. He spotted Brindleface's poor kit straight away. They lay quietly in a break-in nest, coughing, their noses and eyes steaming. Yellowfang greeted him. Thanks for the catnip. We're gonna need it. Patchpelt was green cough now. She gestured with her nose towards another nest in the break-in. Inside, Fireheart could see the old Tom's matted black and white fur. How's Cinderpaw? He asked, looking back at the medicine cat. Yellowfang sighed. She was awake earlier, but not for long. She has an infection on her leg. Oh. StarClan knows. I've tried everything, but she must fight this one off herself. Fireheart peered into Cinderpaw's nest. The little gray cat was twitching in her sleep, her injured leg twisted awkwardly to one side. Fireheart shuddered, suddenly afraid she might yet lose the struggle. He turned back to Yellowfang, looking for words of encouragement, but the medicine cat sat with her head low. She looked exhausted. Do you think Spotted Leaf would have been able to save these cats? She meowed unexpectedly, raising her head to meet his gaze. Fireheart shivered. He could still sense Spotted Leaf's presence here in the clearing. He remembered how efficiently she tended to Ravenpaw's shoulder wound after the battle with RiverClan, and how carefully she advised him about caring for Yellowfang when the old she-cat had first come to the ThunderClan camp. Then he looked at Yellowfang, her shoulders weighed down with experience. I'm sure there's nothing Spotted Leaf would have done differently, he told her. One of the kids cried out and Yellowfang sprang up. As she passed, Fireheart leaned forward and gently stroked the old cat's side with his muzzle. She twitched her shoulder gratefully at him. Then, filled with sadness, he turned and padded towards the fern tunnel. The white pelt of Frostfur appeared at the other end. She must be coming to see Cinderpaw. As he approached the queen, Fireheart lifted his head and looked into her blue eyes. The sorrow in them made his heart twist in pain. Frostfur? He began. The queen stopped. I'm sorry. Fireheart trembled as he spoke. Frostfur looked confused. What for? I should have been able to stop Cinderpaw from going to the Thunderpath. Frostfur gazed at him, but expression gave away nothing except her sadness. I don't blame you, Fireheart, she murmured, and then she lowered her head and carried on towards her kit. Graystripe was back, munching on a vole beside the nettle clump. Fireheart padded over to him. Tiger Claw says you've got to move to the fallen oak with the white cough cats, he meowed. With a prickle of resentment, he remembered how the deputy had questioned him about his friend. That won't be necessary, replied Graystripe cheerfully. I'm better now. Yellowfang gave me the all clear this morning. Fireheart looked closely at Graystripe. His eyes were certainly bright again, and his runny nose had dried to an unpleasant crust. At any other time, Fireheart would have teased him about how much he looked like Runny Nose, the ShadowClan medicine cat. Now he just spat crossly. Tigerclaw has noticed your disappearances. You should be more careful. Why can't you stay away from Silverstream, at least for now? Graystripe stopped chewing and stared angrily back at Fireheart. And why can't you mind your own business? Fireheart closed his eyes and snorted with frustration. Would he ever get through to his friend? Then he wondered if he even cared anymore. After all, Graystripe hadn't asked about Cinderpaw. Fireheart's stomach growled to tell him he was hungry. He might as well eat. He took a sparrow from the pile of fresh kill and carried it away to a deserted corner of the camp to eat alone. As he settled down, he thought of Princess, far away in Two-Leg Place, with her newborn kits. Lonely and anxious, Fireheart stared across the camp and longed to see her again. Chapter 19! Okay, break time. I need a little sippy. We've only been live for like 2 hours, and so much has happened. Oh my god, oh my god. So much has happened, oh my god. Just think, guys, we're not even at the climax of this book yet. That wasn't the climax. We're not even in the home stretch. Usually that happens like what? The last 2 chapters of Warrior Cat books? Absolutely baffling. All right. Tigerclaw, you poo-poo head. So true. Chapter 19. In the following days, Fireheart struggled against the urge to visit his sister. His yearning to be with his kitty pet kin was beginning to make him feel uncomfortable. He kept himself busy by hunting in the snowy forests, replenishing the camp store. He had a successful hunt this afternoon, returning to camp with 2 mice and a chaffinch as the sun dipped behind the trees. He buried the mice in the snow store and took the chaffinch for his own supper. As he finished his meal, he noticed Whitestorm padding towards him. I want you to take Sandpaw out on dawn patrol, the great white warrior meowed. ShadowClan has been sent as close as the owl tree. ShadowClan? Fireheart echoed in alarm. Perhaps Tigerclaw really had found evidence of an invasion after all. Was planning to take Breaking Paw out again tomorrow. Isn't Graystripe better now? Asked Whitestorm. He can take Breaking Paw. Of course, thought Fireheart, and perhaps training his apprentice would keep Graystripe away from Silverstream for once. But that meant he would have to go on patrol with Sandpaw, and Fireheart couldn't help but think of the furious look Sandpaw had given him when he'd interrupted her fight with the RiverClan warrior beside the gorge. Just me and Sandpaw, he asked. Whitestorm looked at him in surprise. Sandpaw's almost a warrior, and you can take care of yourself, he replied. Whitestorm had misunderstood Fireheart's concern. He wasn't afraid of being attacked by enemy cats. He was afraid Sandpaw hated him as much as Dustpaw did. But Fireheart didn't correct him. Does Sandpaw know? You can tell her, meowed Whitestorm. Fireheart's ears twitched. He didn't think Sandpaw would be too thrilled by the idea of patrolling with him, but he didn't argue. Whitestorm nodded briefly and bounded towards the warrior's den. Fireheart sighed and padded over to where Sandpaw was sitting with the other apprentices. Sandpaw, Fireheart shifted uneasily. Whitestorm wants you to patrol with me at dawn tomorrow. He waited for a resentful hiss, but Sandpaw merely looked up at him and meowed. Fine. Even Dustpaw looked surprised. Okay, echoed Fireheart, taken aback. Meet you at sunrise, then. Sunrise, agreed Sandpaw. Fireheart decided to share the good news about Sandpaw's lack of hostility with Graystripe. It might be a chance for them to start talking to each other again. Graystripe was sharing tongues with Running Wing by the clump of nettles. Hi, Running Wing. Hi, Fireheart. Running Wing meowed as Fireheart approached. Hi. Fireheart looked expectantly at Graystripe, but Graystripe had turned his head away and was staring at the boundary wall. Fireheart's heart sank. He dropped his head and turned back towards his nest. He couldn't wait to be out on patrol tomorrow and away from the camp. The sky glowed palest pink above Fireheart's head as he pushed his way out of the den the next morning. Sandpaw was waiting for him outside the gorse tunnel. Hi. Fireheart meowed, feeling a bit awkward. Hi. Oh, sorry, she says it quietly. Hi. Sandpaw answered quietly. Fireheart sat down. Let's wait for the night patrol to get back, he suggested. They sat in silence until they heard the familiar rustle of the bushes heralding the return of Whitestorm, Longtail, and Mousefur. Any sign of ShadowClan? Fireheart asked. We definitely picked up some ShadowClan scents, answered Whitestorm grimly. It's strange, meowed Mousefur, frowning. It's always the same group of scents. ShadowClan must be sending the same warriors each time. You two had better check out the RiverClan border, suggested Whitestorm. We didn't get the chance to patrol there. Be careful, and remember, you don't want to start a fight. You're just looking for signs they've been hunting on our land again. Yes, Whitestorm, meowed Fireheart. Sandpaw nodded respectfully. Fireheart led the way. We'll start at the 4 trees and work our way along the border to Tall Pines, he meowed as they climbed out of the camp ravine. Sounds good, replied Sandpaw. I've never seen the 4 trees in the snow. Fire listened for sarcasm in her voice, but she seemed to be sincere. They reached the top of the ravine. Which way now? Fireheart decided to test her. Do you think I don't know the way to the fortress? Sandpaw protested. Fireheart began to regret acting like a mentor until he noticed a good-humored gleam in her eyes. She charged away through the woods without another word, and Fireheart pelted after her. It felt good to be running through the woods with another cat again. He had to admit Sandpaw was fast. She was still 2 fox lengths away when she leaped over a trunk of fallen tree and disappeared. Fireheart followed, taking a tree in a single bound. As he landed on the other side, something hit him from behind. He skidded in the snow, rolled over, and sprang to his paws. Sandpaw faced him, her whiskers switching. Surprise! Fireheart hissed playfully and leaped on top of her. He was impressed by Sandpaw's strength, but he had the advantage of size. When he finally held her down in the snow, she protested. Get off, you great lump. Okay, meowed Fireheart, letting go of him. But you asked for it. Sandpaw sat up, her orange coat dusted with snow. You look like you've been caught in a snowstorm, she meowed. So do you. They both shook the flakes from their fur. Come on, Fireheart meowed. We better get a move on. They raced side by side as far as the 4 trees. By the time they reached the top of the slope that overlooked the valley, the sky was milky blue. Pale sunlight lit up the snowy hollow. The 4 bare oaks stood below them, glittering with frost. Bye, Juice! Sandpaw stared down, her eyes wide. Fireheart waited, touched by her enthusiasm, until she turned to leave. I didn't know the snow would make everything look so different, she mewed as they began to follow the RiverClan border toward the river. Fireheart nodded in agreement. Their pace was slower as they traveled in silence along the lines of scent markers, alert for any fresh smells of RiverClan on this side of the border. Fireheart paused every few trees to leave a new ThunderClan scent mark. Suddenly, Sandpaw stopped dead. Fancy a little fresh kill? She whispered. Fireheart nodded. The apprentice dropped into a hunting crouch and pulled herself forward through the snow, one slow paw step after another. Fireheart followed her gaze and saw a young rabbit hopping underneath some brambles. With a quick hiss, Sandpaw pounced, diving into the brambles and pinning the rabbit down with a strong forepaw. In one smooth movement, she pulled it towards her to finish it off. Fireheart bounded over her. Great catch, Sandpaw! Sandpaw looked pleased. She dropped the warm, fresh kill to the ground. Share? Thanks! That's one of the best things about patrol, remarked Sandpaw between mouthfuls. What? You can eat what you catch instead of having to take it back to the clan, Sandpaw replied. I don't know how many hunting missions I nearly starved on. Fireheart purred with amusement. They set off again, skirting sunning rocks to follow the trail into the woods again, close to the RiverClan border. As they reached the top of the bracken-covered slope above the river, Fireheart sent a silent prayer to StarClan they wouldn't find Graystripe here. Look! Meowed Sandpaw suddenly. Her body stiffened with excitement. The river! It's frozen! Fireheart's heart lurched as he remembered Cinderpaw saying the same words before Graystripe's accident. We're not going down to look, he meowed firmly. We don't have to. You can see from here. Let's go back and tell the clan. Why? Fireheart couldn't understand Sandpaw's excitement. A patrol of our warriors could cross the river now, Sandpaw meowed. We can invade River Clan's territory and steal back some of the prey they've taken from us. Fireheart felt a cold chill ripple through the fur on his spine. What would Graystripe think about that? And could Fireheart bring himself to go into battle against the starving River Clan? Sandpaw circled him impatiently. Are you coming? Yes, replied Fireheart heavily. He leaped after Sandpaw as she raced off into the woods, back to camp. Sandpaw tore through the gorse tunnel just ahead of Fireheart. Tigerclaw glanced up as they skidded to a halt in the clearing. Fireheart heard a noise behind him. Graystripe was padding through the camp entrance with Rakenpaw. A call sounded from below the high rock. Fireheart, Sandpaw, how was your patrol? Fireheart felt a flood of relief when he saw Bluestar looking her normal self, sitting with her chin high and her tail tucked over her front paws. Sandpaw bounded over to the high rock. The river's frozen, she burst out. We could cross it easily right now. Bluestar's gazed thoughtfully at the apprentice. Fireheart flinched when he saw the ThunderClan leader's eyes gleam. Thank you, Sandpaw, she meowed. Fireheart leaned over and murmured into Sandpaw's ear. Come on, let's tell the others. He guessed that Bluestar would want to discuss the frozen river with her senior warriors. Sandpaw glanced at him, understanding, and followed back to the center of the clearing. This has been such a great day, she meowed. Fireheart nodded and just glanced anxiously at Graystripe. You look like you two had fun. Dustpaw had emerged from the apprentice's den. Drowned another River Clan cat, he sneered at Fireheart. Dustpaw looked at Sandpaw expectantly. Fireheart guessed he was waiting for her to agree with him, like she used to, but Sandpaw wasn't listening. Fireheart felt the small prickle of satisfaction at the irritated look on Dustpaw's face as she meowed breathlessly. We found out the river's frozen. I think Bluestar's planning a raid on River Clan. At that moment, their leader's call sounded from the high rock, and the clan began to gather in the clearing. The sun had reached its high point, which in Leaf Bear meant that it was barely above the treetops. Sandpaw and Fireheart have brought good news. The river is frozen over, Bluestar announced. We will take this opportunity to make a raid on River Clan's hunting grounds to send the message that they must stop stealing our prey. Our warriors will track down one of their patrols and give them a warning that they'll remember for a long time. Fireheart winced as he remembered what Silverstream had told him about her starving clan. Around him, the other cats raised their voices eagerly in eager yowls. Fireheart had not heard the clan this excited for many moons. Tigerclaw, Bluestar called above the dim. Are our warriors fit enough for a raid of River Clan? Tigerclaw nodded. Excellent. Bluestar lifted her tail. Then we shall leave at sunset. The clan yowled with delight. Fireheart's paws prickled. Was Bluestar going too? Surely she wouldn't risk her last life on a border raid. Fireheart looked over her shoulder at Graystripe. He was staring up at the high rock, the tip of his tail twitching nervously. As the yowls died away, Graystripe called out, It feels warmer today. A thaw would make the ice too dangerous to cross. Fireheart held his breath as the other cats turned to look curiously at Graystripe. Tigerclaw stared down at Graystripe, his amber eyes puzzled. You're not usually reluctant to fight, the dark warrior meowed slowly. Darkstripe craned his neck and added, Yeah, Graystripe, you're not afraid of those River Clan flea bags, are you? Graystripe fidgeted uncomfortably as the clown waited for an answer. Looks like he's scared, hissed Dustspot from Sandpaw's side. Fireheart's tail flicked angrily, but he managed to keep his voice light as he called, Yes, of getting his paws wet. Graystripe's fallen through the ice once this Leaf Bear. He's not keen to do it again. Oh, snap. He teased Graystripe in front of everyone. The tension in the clan dissolved into amused purrs. Graystripe looked down at the ground, his ears flat. Only Tigerclaw kept his suspicious frown. Bluestripe waited until the murmurings had died away. I must discuss the raid with my senior warriors. She leaped down from the high rock, landing so lightly that it was hard to believe that she had been fighting for her lives a few days ago. Tigerclaw, Whitestorm, and Willowpelt followed her to her den, and the rest of the clan broke away in groups to discuss the prospered attack. I suppose you expect me to thank you for embarrassing me. Fireheart heard Graystripe's angry hiss in his ears. Not at all, he snapped. But you could at least be grateful I'm still covering for you. He bounded away to the edge of the clearing, his fur bristling with fury. Sandpaw ran over to join him. It's about time we showed those RiverClan cats that they can't hunt in our territory whenever they like, she meowed, her eyes shining. Yes, I suppose so, Fireheart answered absently. He couldn't take his eyes off Graystripe. Was he imagining it, or was the Grey Warrior edging further and further towards the nursery? Was Graystripe planning on slipping away to warn Silverstream? Fireheart got slowly to his paws and began to pad towards the nursery. Graystripe glared at Fireheart as he approached, but before either warrior could speak, Bluestar's call sounded once more from the high rock. Fireheart stopped where he was, but didn't take his eyes off Graystripe. Willowpelt agrees with young Graystripe, Bluestar declared. A thaw is on the way. Graystripe lifted his chin and flashed a defiant look at Fireheart. But Fireheart didn't care. Bluestar was going to call off the raid. Now Graystripe wouldn't have to choose between his clan or Silverstream, and Fireheart wouldn't have to join a raiding party against a clan he knew was already suffering. But Bluestar hadn't finished. So, we will attack at once. Fireheart glanced sideways. Graystripe's look of triumph had turned into one of sheer horror. Bluestar continued. We will leave a patrol of warriors here to guard the camp. We have to remember the possible threat from ShadowClan. 5 warriors will make the raid. I will remain here. Good, Fireheart thought. She wasn't planning to risk her final life after all. TigerClan will lead the raiding party. Darkstripe, Willowpelt, and Longtail will go with him. That leaves one more place. Can I go? Fireheart burst out. Even though his heart felt heavy at the thought of attacking hungry RiverClan cats, it meant that Graystripe wouldn't have to make the choice. Thank you, Fireheart. You may join the patrol. Bluestar was clearly pleased by her former apprentice's eagerness. Tigerclaw didn't look so happy. He narrowed his eyes at Fireheart, gazing at him with undisguised suspicion. There is no time to lose, Bluestar yowled. I can smell the warm winds myself. Tigerclaw will brief you as you travel. Go now. Darkstripe, Longtail, and Willowpelt sped after Tigerclaw. Fireheart followed them as they thundered through the gorse tunnel and headed up the ravine towards RiverClan territory. They charged past Sunning Rocks and they reached the enemy border as Low Leaf Bear's sun began to dip towards the forest. Fireheart sniffed the air. Graystripe and Willowpelt had been right. He could smell warmer winds and the rain clouds were already pushing over the treetops. As they raced down the slope towards the river, Fireheart felt a deep sense of disquiet. Silverstream's desperate story rang in his ears, and he fought to push away his feelings of sympathy. The ThunderClan warriors emerged from the break-in and skidded to a stop at the edge of the river. The sight that greeted them made Fireheart weak with relief. The shining sheet of ice that Fireheart had seen earlier with Sandpaw had broken up into a rushing flow of cold, black water. Oh, dang. Would he rather everyone find out about his forbidden love? His love. Guys, we are cruising! Chapter 20. Tigerclaw turned to his warriors, his pale eyes flashing with frustration. We'll have to wait, he snarled. The patrol turned and began to trudge home. Fireheart sent up a wordless prayer of thanks to StarClan, but there was a bitter taste in his throat. Now he would never know if he could have gone through with the raid. It was only Graystripe he didn't trust. It wasn't only Graystripe he didn't trust. He didn't even trust himself. So invested. Me too! I love warriors. Fireheart kept silent all the way home. Every now and then he saw Tigerclaw flash a glance at him over his massive brown shoulder. It was a slow journey. The light of the short leaf bear was fading when they finally reached the top of the ravine. Fireheart waited for the other warriors to pick their way down first. By the time they padded towards the gorse tunnel, Tigerclaw was already explaining to the disappointed clan that the river had thawed. Fireheart skirted the edge of the clearing, looking for Graystripe. He needed to know if his friend had slipped out of the camp. Instinctively, he headed for the nursery. As he approached the tangled mass of brambles, he heard a familiar meow. Fireheart! Fireheart felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps Graystripe was actually grateful he had offered to take the final place in the raiding party? He followed his friend's voice to the shadows behind the nursery. Fireheart mewed quietly into the gloom, but he couldn't see Graystripe anywhere. Suddenly, something crashed into his side with a mighty thump. Fireheart spun around, all his senses alert. He saw Graystripe with his hackles raised, silhouette in the dimness. Graystripe lunged again. Fireheart ducked just in time as Graystripe swung a wide gray paw at his ears. "What are you doing?" Fireheart spluttered. Graystripe flattened his ears and hissed. "You didn't trust me! You thought I would betray ThunderClan!" He aimed another swipe. This one caught the tip of Fireheart's ear. Pain and fury shot through him. "Just wanted to save you from having to make a choice," he spat. "Although it's true I'm not sure where your loyalties lie right now." Graystripe flew at him and knocked him backwards. The two cats tussled, claws unsheathed. "I make my own choices," Graystripe snarled. Fireheart struggled free and leaped onto Graystripe's back. "I was trying to protect you! I don't need protecting!" Blinded by anger, Fireheart dug his claws into Graystripe's pelt, but Graystripe flipped Fireheart over and together they rolled out from behind the nursery. The cats in the clearing sprang out of the way as the two young warriors bundled into them. Fireheart yowled with rage as Graystripe bit his foreleg. He thrust upward with the claw and ranked Graystripe's above his eye. Graystripe reluctantly retaliated by lunging downward and sinking his teeth into Fireheart's hind leg. "Stop this at once!" Bluestar's stern yowl made Fireheart and Graystripe freeze. Fireheart released his grip on Graystripe and shuffled painfully sideways. Graystripe backed away, his fur bristling. Out of the corner of his eye, Fireheart saw Tigerclaw sneering with barely suppressed delight, curling his lip back to reveal his teeth. "Fireheart, I want to see you in my den, now," Bluestar growled, her blue eyes flashing fire. "Graystripe, go to your nest and stay there." The rest of the clan melted away into the shadows. Fireheart limped after Bluestar to her den. He kept his eyes fixed on the ground, feeling worn out and confused. Bluestar sat down on the sandy floor and stared at Fireheart in disbelief for a moment. Then she meowed angrily. "What was that all about?" Fireheart shook his head. As furious as he was, he could not reveal his friend's secret. Bluestar closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I realize feelings are running high in camp right now, but I never expected to see you and Graystripe fighting. Are you hurt?" Fireheart could feel his ear and hind leg stinging, but he shrugged and murmured, "No." "Are you going to tell me what this is about?" Fireheart met her gaze as steadily as she could. "Bluestar, I'm sorry. I can't explain. At least that much is true," he thought. "Very well," meowed Bluestar at last. "You two can sort it out on your own. The clan is facing a difficult time, but I won't tolerate this sort of infighting. Do you understand?" "Yes, Bluestar," Fireheart answered. "May I go?" Bluestar nodded, and Fireheart turned and slunk out of her den. He knew he had let his old mentor down, but there was no way he could confide in her. Last time he'd done that about Ravenpaw's accusation against Tigerclaw, she hadn't believed him. And if she believed him this time, he would be betraying his best friend. Feeling sick with worry, Fireheart crept across the clearing and slipped inside the warrior's den. He settled into his nest beside Graystripe and curled himself into a tight ball. He lay there, unmoving, unaware of Graystripe's tense body beside him, until sleep finally overcame him. Fireheart awoke early the next morning. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the clearing was empty as he padded across to Yellowfang's den. He wanted to see Cinderpaw. Yellowfang was asleep, curled up beside Brindleface's sick kits. They squirmed quietly in their nests, their eyes closed. Yellowfang was snoring loudly. Fireheart didn't want to wake her, so he crept over to Cinderpaw's nest and peered in. The little gray cat was asleep too. The blood had been washed from her fur. Fireheart wondered whether she had cleaned it herself or whether Yellowfang had washed it off. Fireheart crouched beside Cinderpaw and watched her breathe. There was something calming about the way her sides rose and fell. She seemed much more peaceful than when he last visited. He stayed with her until the dawn light filtered through the ferns and he heard the clan begin to stir. Fireheart got to his paws. He leaned into Cinderpaw's nest and touched her side softly with his nose. As he turned to leave, Yellowfang stretched and opened her eyes.
"Yeah, they're Fireheart."
"Nice, Dewey!" "I came to see Cinderpaw," he whispered.
"She's doing well," meowed
Yellowfang, pushing herself up. Fireheart's eyes clouded with relief. "Thank you, Yellowfang." When he reached the clearing, Tigerclaw was addressing a group of warriors and apprentices. He spotted Fireheart straight away.
Nice of you to show up, he growled. Graystripe just joined us too. He's been having a word with Blue Star.
Fireheart glanced at his friend, but Graystripe was staring at the ground. The other warriors watched in silence as Fireheart hurried over and sat down beside Sandpaw.
During this thaw, the woods will be alive with prey, Tigerclaw meowed. They'll be hungry after sheltering in their burrows. This will be a good chance to catch as much as we can.
But there's still fresh kill in the snow store, Dustpaw mewed.
It'll be crow food soon, Tigerclaw told him. We need to take every opportunity to hunt. As Leaf Bear goes on, the prey will start to disappear, and what stays around will be too thin.
The warriors nodded in agreement.
Longtail,
Tigerclaw turned his eyes to the pale tabby warrior.
I want you to organize the hunting parties.
Longtail nodded, and Tigerclaw got up and padded towards Blue Star's den. As Fireheart watched him disappear through the lichen, he couldn't help wondering if the leader and deputy would discuss his fight with Graystripe. Longtail's voice summoned him away from his thoughts.
Fireheart, you and Sandpaw can join Mousefur. Graystripe can hunt with Whitestorm and Brackenpaw. It's probably best if I don't put you two in the same group.
Amused purrs rippled through the group, but Fireheart narrowed his eyes angrily. He comforted himself by studying the nick he had left in the pale tabby's ear when Longtail had taunted him on his first day in the camp. Nice puppy! Good fight last night, Mousefur rasped beside him. Her eyes gleamed with mischief, almost made up for missing out on a battle. Fireheart scowled as Dustpaw added, Yeah, nice moves, Fireheart, for a kitty pet. Fireheart gritted his teeth and looked at the ground, sheathing and unsheathing his claws. The two groups left the camp together. As the hunters filed up the trail out of the ravine, Fireheart looked at the sky. The rain clouds he had seen rolling in last night had covered the sun, and the snow under Paw was turning to slush. Mousefur led Sandpaw and Fireheart through the tall pines. I'll take Sandpaw with me, the brown warrior told Fireheart. You can hunt alone. Meet us back at camp at Sunhigh. Fireheart couldn't help feeling relieved at the thought of being alone. He stalked away through the trees, still hardly able to believe that he and Graystripe had fought so bitterly. Fireheart felt lost and alone without his old friend, though he barely recognized him anymore. He wondered if they could ever be friends again. It wasn't until he felt the softness of leaves beneath his paws that Fireheart realized he'd wandered all the way to the oak woods that backed into the two-leg place. Instantly he thought of Princess, and wondered if his paws had carried him to her two-leg nest for a reason. Fireheart made straight for her fence and called softly down into the garden. Then he jumped back into the woods and waited in the undergrowth for his sister to come looking. He didn't have to wait long before there was a scrabbling noise on the fence, and he smelled her distinctive scent. Fireheart was about to leap out to meet her when he smelt a second, unfamiliar scent. The bracken rustled, and Princess appeared. In her mouth she carried a tiny white kid! As Fireheart pushed his way out to meet her, she mewed a warm greeting through the bundle of fur in her teeth. The kit was very small. Fireheart guessed it would not be weaned for another moon. Princess cleared away some slush with her paw and laid it gently down on the leaves. Then she sat down and wrapped her thick tail around it. Fireheart was overwhelmed with emotion. This was his own kin, kitty pet born like he had been. He walked quietly over to Princess, nuzzled the greeting, and bent down to sniff the kit. It smelled of warmth and milk, strange but somehow familiar. Fireheart gave it a tender lick on the head and it mewled, opening its pink mouth to reveal tiny white teeth. Princess looked at Fireheart, her eyes shining. I have brought him for you, Fireheart, she meowed softly. I want you to take him back with you to your clan so that he can be your new apprentice.
Oh, his scissors so cute. She saw how sad he was about... Please take my firstborn. She saw how sad he was about Cinderpaw and decided to give her baby to him.
Princess is perfect. Princess deserves the name Princess. She is so sweet. She's like Fireheart's like not therapist, but like ventor. He comes to her to vent. Okay, guys. I think we're gonna stop for today. I can kind of feel my throat hurting. So I think this is a good place to stop too. Because how far did we read almost 50 pages, I think. So we'll be able to finish it next time. Which is good. No, stop or I cry. I wish for a Nono plushie I can use to beat up people. Don't say that. Don't beat them up. What? Outrageous. Outrageous. Guys, during that reading session, I got an email from the Canada Revenue Agency. So either they've given me my money or they've said, yo, you took too long to reply, so we're gonna go ahead and do our junk. Or it's like another reply, like, BTW, we messaged you and you didn't reply, and now you have so and so long. I'm going to check. First my account. Thank you for such a fun stream. I love feeling so nostalgic and happy. Me too! I know these streams... Oh, I didn't get any money. I know these streams aren't the most popular streams, but I look forward to them every week. Even if 1 or 2 of you are happy to listen, then I am happy. And it's nice for me. I've been meaning to reread the Warrior Cat series for ages, and I never had time, so it's really nice to kind of force it into my time. You know what I mean? It's like when I want to do something that I don't have time to do, then I do it on stream. Then I feel like I'm accomplishing something bonus, like a bonus accomplishment. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to Wednesdays because of this. How embarrassing. I loved it. Makes me remember of your Warrior Cat OC. Don't worry. I've had so many Warrior Cat OCs. I've had superpower Warrior Cat OCs. I RP'd this one cat called Tidal Wave, and he and his siblings, oh god, I forget the siblings' names. But they were sun and earth related, and they could control powers. They had power controls. Tidal Wave was a grumpy little boy, and he lived underwater because he could breathe underwater. And came out and he brooded. He sat on a log and brooded. And it would rain. And then other cats would come and they would be like, sup? And he would be like, what is it? My sister has left me and gone to live in the clans. And this was on a popular Warrior Cat RP site. So there were a lot of people. I had his sisters. I think it was Sunset Smoke. I feel like it was Sunset Smoke. She was fire, and my friend RP'd her. And then there was another one, Fur, maybe. I don't know. He was the earth one, and my ex-friend RP'd him, but not really. So I ended up RP'ing him mostly. Basic brown tabby with some gnarly wings. Oh my god. That's crazy. All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was checking my email about the Canada Revenue Agency. But I think it was only a reminder, or it was GST. Mia 12, Briar Pelt, a giant scarred Maine Coon that be having a piercing amber eyes with the classic white eye. Oh snap! That sounds really cool though. A Maine Coon. Wow. I think that's original. I don't recall ever reading about a Maine Coon. And I was on very popular webtoons? Not webtoons. Oh god, free webs! Free webs. I was on very popular free webs Warrior Cat RPs. And nobody had Maine Coons. It was tabbies or tortoise shell or calicos. Black, white. A raccoon! Oh my god. Mine had one purple and one blue eye. Very special. Ooh, dang. I don't think I've ever had a cat with one eye, one color, one eye, the other color. But I really love that in designs. I think it's cool. You know the reason why? You know the reason why? It's because, or at least my theory, when we made warrior cats, we would look up the pictures, right? Like, we would look up cat pictures. We would go on Flickr or Google and we would go white cat with blue eyes. And it was typically frowned on if you had a cat, like if you had a, so we would use like real life cat pictures and stuff, right? And it was typically frowned upon if you like photoshopped like the cat's eyes to be a different color, like purple or something. It was easier to get away with if they were both the same color and it wasn't like purple. It was like red or something. Something easier like that. But none of the cats were really like crazy because we would pick the best cat pictures and base our cats off of those cats. Managed to RP a lot with her being all gruff, but secretly wanted her to be soft. But I kind of stopped when almost all the RPs I went in to be like, Ooga, be my mate. Isn't that always how it is? That's why I like some sites that had like a greater power, like a spicier thing, a secret plot. Pretty uncommon in cats. A lot of white cats have it though. Typically yellow and blue. Yeah. Right. I think I love it. I like it when cats have one dark eye and then one like bright eye. Very nice. I ended up making her a son, and funnily enough, it was my first cat. Oh, I gave my cat an OC to be with me in my Warriors timeline. So cute. Actually, a few weeks ago, I looked up my old YouTube account that had my warrior cat edits on it. And it's still up. And I can find it really easily. I was so surprised. Named him Tree Pelt. So cute. But my username was a warrior cat name. That's why I was thinking about it. But those were the days when, like, roleplay was, like, insane. Like, you would just say things for, like, drama. I remember, like, RPing this one cat, and... Oh, this is my flex. I went to school with this one girl, and she's, like, a genius. Like, I talked about her before. But she's, like... We have this like top 20 under 20 of Canada, and she's one of them, and she's like, I don't know, we're like, she's gonna cure, she probably has cured something by now. She went on to Antarctica to study like something. Like, she's crazy. She's insane. But my flex is I RP'd with her warrior cats. In the middle school. Her name was Echo Paw. I know her dark past. Her name was Echo Paw, and back in the day, you could make up whatever you wanted because there weren't like character rights, and also you were like kids. you know, you were just writing things. So I had said, I made like this dramatic post about saying how Echo Paw, my friend's OC cat, was actually my daughter because, and it was like a secret love affair with some other clan cat that didn't actually exist. And she was all like, what? Gasp! Like, she wasn't like, it wasn't like something that she was offended by, but like, if you did that nowadays, it would not fly, and also doesn't make sense because you can't decide that about someone else's OC. But I did it when I was like, I don't know, 10, 12. He was the opposite of my OC, tiny English short hair, which I could have kept him the same, but no, heavens forbid, my actually Maine Coon would be the same Maine Coon. So cute. Yeah, those were the days. And then I remember feeling so embarrassed after I did that. Like, oh my god, I made such a cringe post because my OC got all emotional. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. Nobody else has been so emotional on this site yet that I've seen. Maybe I'm just being a drama queen. I had that like anxiety afterwards, like, oh, I can't believe everybody read my dramatic post. Those were the days. But it was funny because we wouldn't really talk about it in real life. She was a grade under me. Hi, Froggy! She was a grade under me, and so sometimes I would be like, hi, Echo Paw, and then she'd be like, hi. But she was really, really friendly. There's a reason why she was awarded so many things. She was also very good at writing. I wonder why. But yeah, that's my big flex. And also, she'll probably remember me. And also, I'll be like, hey, remember when we RP'd together, warrior cats, in our past? And she'll be like, yeah, probably. Thank you! We're actually just ending stream now, but thank you for dropping by. I started rambling about my past. Warrior cat OCs and all that. The wildest thing I remember from my Warrior Cats RPs were I managed to get deputy rank in this long RP session I had on Roblox. Oh my god. The Warrior Cat Roblox scene is insane. But then I don't know if they were serious, but two apprentices were just like, Briarpelt's so dreamy. I wonder if they'd be my mentor. And then the two fought! And I came back into the clan and one of them was like, Briarpelt, help me. I didn't know what to do, so I left. Oh my gosh. But so dramatic. I miss those days. I do truly miss those days when the most dramatic, insane things can happen. I feel like, you know what I feel like? Maybe this is a little controversial. Controversial. I think that kids these days, they aren't role-playing enough warrior cats or something similar and getting out all their drama, their unhinged drama about fighting for lovers and cats and war and pregnancies of cats that are from other clans and forbidden love stories and sad breakups, that they spit it all out on social media in other ways that are actually quite harmful. I think they need a better outlet, and they didn't get to do Warrior Cat RP to be that outlet, or they haven't really experienced it. That's what I think. That's my opinion. Because it's almost like the Twitter drama you read about these days. It's like, this could be something entirely different on a Warrior Cat RP site. Because these days all about twerking and TikTok and canceling each other. Back in my days, we RP'd warriors and banished people from our clans. And then cried about it. Cried about being banished from our clan because we were all emotionally attached. Your brother were like 7 years apart, but he likes the RP Transformers, so I'm like, who am I to deny his fun? That's cute. Really, what is RP if not Dungeons and Dragons? You know what I mean? It's character from games, from anime, etc. Best days. Best days! I never did, like, character RP. Okay, that's not true. I did at one point. But not when I was younger in Cats. When I was young, my best friend and I had a whole universe of all the anime, video games, everything we love. Now we are engaged. Aw, that's so cute! Aw. That's the best way to get to know someone. Honestly, if you start building worlds together with someone, you learn everything about them. You learn their political stance. You learn how their characters, like, how, even if there's, like, evil characters and, you know, they're, like, morally, like, bad or whatever, you can tell from other characters things that they personally believe in, you know? Saki Sunshine, thank you for the follow! And if you create all these characters together and, like, some of these characters fall in love, you learn, like, oh, what do they value? Through these, like, little simple things. What do they find attractive? What do they think would break their trust through these characters? None of you looky-docking yourself? No. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It is true. I'm not self-doxing, but I have RP'd before in the past. Oh, to have a real connection. Peachy, all you have to do is find someone and then RP with them. And then do that for several years, probably. That could cry or spy. Well, if you join, like, a big group, then eventually you'll find someone that clicks with you, you know? And then you'll just be talking with them all the time about your OCs. You don't have to worry about, like, oh, what will I talk to them about? You could just be like, so I was thinking, I saw this video, and I was thinking about this AU about pirates, and we should make our OCs pirates. What do you think? And then they'll be like, oh my god, you're so right. Let's make our OCs pirates. And then you can be pirates together. And then if that dies out, you can be like, so I saw this other thing and it's about, like, kings and queens. And so I was thinking about, like, an AU where our OCs are kings and queens. And then they'll be like, oh, that's so smart. Let's talk about our OCs as kings and queens. It's just endless. It's just the endless talking convos. I don't have anyone to talk to right now, and I was wondering if I could vent real quick. It's not a heavy issue or anything. I know streamers and therapists. Sure! We're gonna end anyways. Thank you for the pat! It's not the middle of the stream anyways, so we can discuss things. You just have to, you seem to know we're not therapists. Also, the things I say aren't things that should be taken as a professional. Imagine this is again. I see you. I'm waiting. I'm checking my email while I'm waiting. Checking a message. Should I reply to this? No. And then today this was better was dead is indeed my best friend and I respected this season too. Not to FaceTime, but now she's on the phone with my sister and it made me upset. Saw you under my recommended channel, saw your adorable model, thought I could swing by real quick. Ha! Yeah, people are like, I felt like there's something wrong with me or something. I wouldn't think so. I think sometimes it's just like that. Like, I know myself, if I'm not talking to people or if I'm like, dang, I'm dead right now, I don't even want to talk to my mom or my sister. Sometimes I don't want to talk to anyone. Sometimes I only want to talk to one specific person. Sometimes I want to talk to a specific group of people. And it's not like, oh, I don't like my mom and sister now, or I don't like my group of friends from XYZ. It's more just like this person's vibe is matching my vibe at this exact moment. And these vibes are ever changing. And so, but she didn't feel like talking to anyone. I think, well, if that's the case, it's always a good thing to give the other person the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're your best friend, you know? They're your bestie friendy. You've known them for a very long time. They say they don't feel like talking to anyone, but then maybe like, I don't know, 10 minutes later, they're like, they change their mind. People can change their mind. And maybe they changed their mind and they were like, I want to talk to XYZ person. People are allowed to do that. Even if it's, if it happens in such a short amount of time, it's like, dang. Well, were you lying to me? On one hand, like, you can approach it in two ways, right? You can be like, whoa, are you lying to me? Or like, why would you say that? Or you could be like, oh, maybe they just changed their mind. Maybe they're feeling a little different right now. You know? And if they're your bestie busty, it's always good to give them the benefit of the doubt. Be like, all right, well, if they're already feeling low, then they can go do whatever they want that'll make them feel better. Wise words. Thank you for the headband. Let's see, read. Sorry, I missed this message. Sometimes I have a small group of friends, obviously, but I always just have one select person I can chit chat up more than anyone else. But then they help me get social back up and they're back in the group. Certain times, everyone has at least one person they can always talk to and will always have the energy, so there's nothing wrong with you. I hope that kind of helped. I remember, I have this like very distinct memory. Just that I already been having low-key proof she might be just tolerating you. I tell her about me, but it's not much the other way around. I've been feeling like she doesn't trust me or something. This is just extra pain again, so I guess I'm insecure. You know what I do in these times? Times where I sit and I'm like suddenly really worried about like what one person thinks. I take a step back and I think, okay, well, maybe I should just focus on myself for now and let them sort out whatever they want to sort out. And if they really are going through something where they are tolerating me or don't want popcorn button because you guys are my pop cubs. See, little popcorn cubs. If they're really doing something that's like, you know, like they're not actually, maybe they're overwhelmed with me, or maybe they just need a break, or they're going through some friend brain, I don't know what, their preferences are changing, you know, then they can go sort that out. And then that's not really anything that you can like do, unless you want to like talk to them. You can just talk to them and be like, hey, I was wondering how you're feeling about things between us, you know? You can always talk to them. Talking, key. Communication, key. But what I do, if I don't communicate, or if I do communicate, or I decide that, hey, I'll just let them, you know, sort whatever they're doing by themselves, then what I do is I try and focus on myself. And by that, I mean I do things that make me like myself more. Like, I remember this one time, I wanted someone's attention so badly. Like, I wanted their attention so badly. And when they weren't talking to me, I was sad. And then I was like, well, they have their own stuff. And if I'm thinking about it too much, I feel miserable. So why don't I try and work on myself? And then maybe they'll like notice me via that. And also I'll be working on myself. So I got like, what can I say? I don't want to like dox myself. I got like, okay, let's say I pierced my ears. I pierced my ears and I was like, yes, I feel so happy. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, oh, I'm so cute. Look at how cute I am. Or I started doing like a skincare routine, you know, and I was like, oh my God, look at how pretty my skin is right now. Or I learned a new skill. Like, I don't know what I learned, but I learned Live 2D recently. That's not related to this, but say if it was, then I could be like, oh yeah, look at this cool skill I learned. Oh, I started learning drawing. Yeah, I could have said I learned how to draw a little, so then I could like focus all my time and energy into something that I know will make me feel better about myself and also improve something about me. And then along the way, maybe the friend of yours will be like, yo, look at her. She's doing good. She's happy. She's bettering herself. Dang. And then you can just keep talking. And you'll find out like, oh, maybe, well, you won't be distracted by any of these bad feelings. And also you'll know if your friend is actually like interested in you and cares about you. Because at the end of the day, you must care for your friend, but your friend must also care for you. If you're asking your friend how their day is going and you're saying, oh my God, I'm so happy about that cool accomplishment, you got to make sure that they're also doing that to you too. They got to say, how's your day? Or, hey, I noticed that you got your ears pierced and it looks really, really good and you've been really happy recently. That makes me really happy. You got to remember to hear those words too. Focus on others a lot. It's really, really, really easy to focus on others a lot, especially if it's someone you really care about and you have routines with them. It can really hurt to like feel insecure or like sad about that stuff. An absolutely massive depression recently, so I picked up programming and coding, and good distraction, release from emotional pain. Bad distraction will get you It's true. And now you have a whole new skill, and you could, and at family gatherings when they're like, hey, what have you been up to? Instead of saying, oh, I've been very sad recently, you could be like, I took up programming and coding, and now I can code XYZ. You just have a thing for it. I understand. I do not have a family. Oh, well, good. Not good, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go through that terrible sort of family interactions where they grill you about your future and your past and your present in one time. Go for it. Being in love with her turned into only adoration. I get you. I had a crush once, and it was like, I couldn't figure out if it was because it was like, I platonically want to be this person's friend so badly, or if it was like, I want to date this person. Either way, I was miserable all the time, constantly. And the only spurts of joy were when I was talking with them. And I was like, you know what? This is so sad. I am so sad all the time. Is it even worth it? The end, it wasn't worth it. But we're still very good friends to this day. This lady and her gaggle of girls just park their giant truck. Oh my gosh. A gaggle of girls. So I try my best not to smother her, but I do think about her like all the time. Check up on her and then try to make a space safer, but I'm miserable sometimes because I know I'll never be her favorite friend like she is mine. It is very sad. But it's good that you also realize it emotionally. Like you're able to step back and be like, okay, I know how to respect her boundaries in that sense. Like, even though I like her, that I'm not gonna force her to like me. And also like to know your situation. That's a first step. And then now you can, even if it hurts and it'll be little baby steps, you can still start focusing on other things little by little. And then eventually you'll be so caught up in your own accomplishments that you won't be thinking about her as much in that sort of way. Just happen to admire from afar, which her be happier when she's with others. Be careful though, Saki. That's like a what should I say? Like a honey trap almost? Is that a honey trap? You know, like a trap that you have like sugar water for flies, and you're like, I'll be happier like this, looking at her from afar, knowing that she's happier. And then at the same time, you know what you're doing? At the same time you're being like, I'm not good enough. Sometimes that can happen, right? You could be saying that to yourself without yourself noticing. Being like, well, of course she doesn't like me that way, or I'm fine with this. Sad face. If she's happy, I'm happy. But you're not really happy. You gotta be careful. To one person, no one's favorite, but that does not get me down because I am still important in many people's lives. So true, Sichi. Never forget your value. All my old friends have drifted to my sister. They all just generally like her better. I know not everyone's cup of tea. That's like, I've never been in a situation where like my friends like my sister more, but that's gotta be a certain kind of unpleasant feeling. Especially because she's like if she's living with you or something, then it's like she's like close by. Including the friend, yeah. Because she's talking with your sister, right? You could always talk to your sister. It might be easier talking to your sister about it. And like, she might have like a different sort of insight because I wish people more like me. A lot of people. I would, if you're on good terms with your sister, then I would talk to your sister as well. Even if it's not about like your insecurities, you could just be like, hey, how's so-and-so doing? Are they okay? That might be a nicer way for you to like still know what's going on in their lives, know if they're like good without like feeling like you're smothering them by asking them constantly. You know, you could just be like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so today? How are they? And then your sister could be like, you're not with your sisters? Oh, that sucks. Then never mind. It doesn't work. In the end, communication is very important. And bettering yourself is also very important. Focusing on other things. Even just watching a show can be very helpful. You seem to be very wise emotionally. You know what I mean? So I don't feel like you'll be stuck in that place. Oh, I have this comic, and it's one of the most randomly inspiring comics I've ever read. It's like this like one panel, like a one panel comic, and it's about like this Viking guy that's like, it's this artist does like a series of this normal, like herself, an artist person, and then a Viking that got transported to her world. And so she does these single page comics about this. I don't know what it's called. An ex-friend of mine, we were at a con and we dropped by their booth and she knew them. I didn't know them. I just know that part. But the Viking, so it would be kind of like them in normal situations are asking normal questions, and then the Viking having his perspective on it because he's a Viking and not from this timeline, so everything is kind of like funny. You know what I mean? But this one comic that I have, it's like, I don't know what she says, but she's saying, I think she's saying like, do you think I'll always be stuck in this one place? And she's talking about like her art and her mood and her like how she's not feeling great. And then the Viking is doing something and he was like, in my experience, when humans get too bored, or they move on to other things or something like that. And I wish I had it because it was like so inspiring to me. I was just like, wow, when they're bored with one thing, they move on to another thing. And I was like, and then it can like apply to like anything. I don't know. Okay, let me go back up. 7 years stepdad, I've been like Sam, and now he's attached to my besties with him, but I'm not, absolutely not different. I don't think Saki doesn't seem like a depressed type of person, slash like not even like just by like hearing like you coming near and venting, you know? It's like everybody has these thoughts. These are like normal people feelings, you know? It doesn't make you a depressing person. It's just a little experience that you're going through, you know? It's a human thing. Don't worry. You're fine. You're fine. I really want to find this comic though. Let me try and Google it. Comic about artist and Viking. This is not it. Let's say 1-page comic about artist and Viking. Also not it. It's that Tumblr at the end of it. Gun Viking? Viking art? Angry Viking press? Okay, I am not gonna find this. I wanna look! Hold on. I'm gonna look! Oh, but my thing is in the way. Oh, you saw my secret extra arm. Sorry, guys. If you can hear me, I'm still alive. Oh no, something's blocking it. I have so much stuff on my floor. on in here? I found it! It's a barbarian! Not a Viking, it's a barbarian. Oh, my knees! I'm back! I'm alive! I'm not upset, don't worry. Okay, it's called Conan the Barbarian is My Spirit Guide by Crom. By Rachel Kahn. By crom.tumblr.com. Picture is... Oh! Okay, so the thing is, the artist is drawing something on a little tablet, looking behind him, and the barbarian is standing on a table trying to install a chandelier made out of candles. And the artist says, "If you get too good at being alone, can you get stuck that way?" And then the barbarian says, "In my experiences, as soon as you really feel capable of something, you get bored and go off on a quest of new challenges." And I found that extremely inspiring at the time, and I still do. I think it's nice to think about it in that way. If you think you're extremely good at something, even if it's a negative thing, you'll get bored of it and try and go do something else. And that can be a good thing. A good accomplishment. A good quest, as he said. Okay, I'm satisfied. Wait, let me go up. And they give advice to come up to me very aggressively, so I end up taking offense because why wouldn't I? We have topic, I know, I apologize, but I low-key want to revamp. Do it! Revamp it! Revisit it! It's gonna really help me feel lighter now they talked about my insecurities. I'm glad! I'm happy to help you in any little way, even if it's just a conversation, or even if it just reiterates your own thoughts and feelings about things. Like if you're already thinking a certain way, and you just needed someone to be like, yeah. Okay, we're gonna end stream now, my lovely pop cubs. Thank you for tuning in on this beautiful Warrior Cat Wednesday. Next week, we will be finishing Fire and Ice. We'll finish Fire and Ice, and then we can start on the next book. The Farmer Whose Horses Ran Away? I have not. Wait. Wait. Y'all was reading Warriors? Yeah! Maybe that's why I was in your recommended. Yeah, we're on Fire and Ice right now. We finished the first book. We have Warrior Cat Wednesday. We finished the first book, and now we're almost done the second book. Very exciting. Can't wait until next time. Yeah! It's every Wednesday at 3 p.m. PST. Yeah, there's heavy drama right now. It's pretty crazy. Thank you. Okay. Now it's time to end. Well, what are we doing? Oh, Friday we're playing Undertale. I still don't know how long it's going to take me to beat Undertale. So either we'll finish on Friday or we won't, and then we'll continue on Saturday. If we finish before Saturday, then I'll just stream something else on Saturday. But I don't know if I will. I don't know how far I am, actually. Not me about to self-insert my OC to beat up Tiger Claw because it's a meanie. Write a fanfic about your OC beating up Tiger Claw. I'm way too old to do such a thing. No, you're not. If it brings you joy, listen. If it brings you joy and even if you feel like, oh, this is an embarrassing thing or I'm too old for this, you can still enjoy it in your own space. You don't need to tell everybody about it. You can enjoy it and then be happy and enjoy it. And you don't need to share it and then have people be like, oh my god, you're too old. You can just do it. You can just do it. And then be happy. It's true. These are the life hacks. Life hacks. Lovely meeting you, Nono. I should get me back when I can. Have a great rest of the day. You too, you guys. Depends how you do with the other boss fights. Oh, it might take 2, 3, maybe 3. I'm guessing 3. I always assume longer than usual with me. Just because I don't know what I'll not be good at. Like, I wasn't expecting me to die that many times fighting Muffy, but I did. And so, who knows what's ahead of me. Especially Sans. But I guess, like, maybe the Sans fight isn't as bad because it's, like, it's not the not pacifist run. Don't think about worries for the last 50 minutes of my shift. Wow. Okay, guys. Should I raid? Who's live? If my stream deck works. Sometimes it needs a second to refresh. Goosebye! Goosebye! Hope your chickens are doing well, cat. Your little chickens. Your lucky chickies. Luette is streaming. Momo. Should I? I wish I could see what they were playing. See, on my stream deck, it shows me like a little screen, their name, and then a preview of what they're doing. But the preview is so tiny because it's just the size of the buttons, right? I'm having a blast. First babe of the season! Ah! Wait, do you like actively hatch new babies every season? Do you keep them all? Is that why you have so many chickens? Is it because you just keep the babies? Or do you like sell the babies? This isn't the time to be asking questions. Wee! Wow. As I decide who to raid. Let's raid... Oh, Soli! Let's raid Soli. Because Soli's cute. And also, I haven't seen Soli recently. Even though it's... We raided her recently, but... Keep him, sometimes we sell him. Nice. Nice. Alright, guys. It is the end of stream. So long from me. If it's night for you, have a good night. If it's day for you, have a good day. Remember to brush your teeth at night or during the day too. And put on sunscreen because that's good for your skin and helps prevent wrinkles and skin cancer. Woohoo! What else is there to say? Remember to floss your teeth. Consider getting a water flosser if you hate flossing your teeth. Wash your face, wash your hands, so true. Join my cookie run oven break guild. I'll see you guys on Friday. I love you. Bye. Remember, moderation Moderation is the key to true happiness. Bye!